I don't want to marry my fiance anymore, and I don't know what to do. I, 26F, have been dating my current fiance Mark, 27, for a little over 7 years now. We are not actually engaged, but claim to be because we have dated longer than what he insisted was the dating phase to see if we could really stay together, 4 years. Anyways, for some time now, I would say about 2 years, things have really taken a turn for the hills, especially since the beginning of this year. We both work and go to school full time, but I am the only one who does the domestic housework, takes care of our dog, etc. I work, go to school, come back home, clean, cook, get his stuff ready, walk, feed, play, train our dog, the whole 9 yards. From time to time, he would help if I remind him or asked him or if I complained enough. This has only begun to get worse as time has passed. I have told him for months on end that I do not feel loved, supported, appreciated, cared for, etc. by him anymore. I tried to give everything to him, but there's a lot of times where he only wants to be on his phone, watch TV, or only be half to a third present. For example, he says that he will walk our dog when he gets back from work constantly, but he hasn't for months. He says that he is exhausted and tired from work and school, while saying that he understands where my frustrations are coming from, but still does nothing to alleviate the burden. Our intimate life has also become obsolete because he's begun to watch adult content multiple times a week, even though I told him that I consider that cheating and is breaking my boundaries. He told me that he is just going through a hard time and just can't find it in himself to be interested in me because it takes too much time, effort, and mental energy from him. I asked him if he still found me attractive, and he was like, "Yeah, I can still get off, but not like I used to anymore." And I've suggested couples counseling a few months ago, and even found that many can work in our schedules, but he refuses to look into them or even try to go. He keeps saying that we just have to try harder together, actually communicate better, and compromise a lot more than what we are now. I was sitting on our bed a few days ago while he was having his escapade in the bathroom again, and I asked myself if I could still see myself marrying him. And my automatic answer was no. No, I couldn't, because I couldn't imagine continuing to live like this. But I am grieving for not having a relationship because I feel like I would have wasted all of those years on someone that I am in love with, but I am not happy with anymore. I am so miserable, stressed, and exhausted. I want to escape, and I want to cry. Then in the comments section, one user said, "Full stop referring to him as your fiance. If there is no ring and no proposal, you are his girlfriend, not his fiance. He has no plans to actually marry you and is using you to make his life easier. Throw the whole man away." Then user 2 commented and said, "I would start taking the steps to move out and move on. A situation like this is never easy when you've invested so much in the person, but you don't want to be married to someone like that either." And then finally, user 3 commented and said, "If he prefers to self-pleasure to adult content instead of having sex with you, sorry to say this, but then you're nothing but a live-in maid to him. You take care of everything while he does nothing. Break it off. I'm pretty sure you and your dog will be better off without him. You deserve love and respect, and that man certainly isn't giving it to you." Update. Hello everyone. I don't know how updates on here work, but I hope I'm doing this right. I'm sorry if it's not right. It has been about a week since I posted, and during that week, unfortunately, I have found out that I am pregnant. My ex-boyfriend saw the tests in the trash and became enraged because he thought I was hiding it from him. I wasn't. I was just in shock because we both used protection. He told me that raising a child together could have saved us if I wasn't such a selfish female dog, and then he accused me of cheating because there was no way I could get pregnant by him if I am on birth control. I asked him if he was dumb, and that is when things hit the fan. Words were said, hands were thrown, and ultimately my dog bit him and the police were called. We both gave statements and they made him leave the apartment. I'm lucky to have some friends in the police department that have checked on me every night since then, and I also have some friends who are helping me pack and move so that he can have the apartment. I am unsure of what to do with this pregnancy as I have never wanted or have had interest in kids. However, I am thankful that I have friends who will support me no matter what decision I make. I am still in shock of what happened, and I've never experienced such fear for my ex-boyfriend as I did in that moment. I don't know how or why things took such a turn for the worse, but they did. I am thinking and wondering about how I have missed the signs and the flags for possibly so long. I have even more concerns about my dog. He has never bit or even tried to bite someone in the 7 years that he has been alive, but he did bite my ex, which brings me even more worry, fear, and anxiety. I have concerns that the country I live in will make me put him down because he is a pit bull mix, but I am hoping with the backing from my friends, the police officers of that night, the vet, etc., it will help me keep him. I want to say thank you to everyone who replied. I appreciate the support, kindness, and encouragement, and I know it should have been an obvious or simple answer/thing to do, but that is my own personal ignorance. Thank you. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, said, "Dogs are protective of their pack. Your dog sees you as family and therefore attacked the threat. With the police report, he more than likely will just be quarantined and then given back to you. But chances are that may not even happen either. I wouldn't worry about it at all." And then user 2 commented and said, "OP, you need to have a hard look at your current situation because if you have a child with him, he will forever remain in your life. If you think his behaviors are bad now, wait until you're carrying his child or that precious innocent one is here. The best thing for you in your situation would be to abort, get a clean break, and leave him for your past." Update number 2. It's been about a month since I have updated, and I'm not even sure if anyone even cares or remembers, but I thought I would give a final update. First, I want to address some things that have been said and mentioned since then. I'm sorry if this is long in advance. 1. I would like to address that many, I am assuming men, have come to ask me of which hands were thrown, why, and the possibility of me deserving it. I will say that once you get into a situation where you are verbally abused, then shoved with so much force that you hit the floor and lose your breath, that you too put up the best fight that you can. However, I hope you never have to feel the helplessness and the powerlessness that goes into being pinned down, punched, scratched, and more while all you can do is barely wiggle your feet and hope for a moment that he stops so you can attempt to scream for help. 2. Yes, there are details missing because I did not feel all details were necessary. I should not have to recount the times of shoves, slaps, punches, and verbal insults thrown at me to justify the final outcome. 3. When you grow up with abuse, this is all you know, so it is hard to register it as abuse. My mother raised me with a very heavy hand and the idea of tough love. In most cases, she would slap, punch, shove, and emotionally or verbally abuse me, just as he did. Growing up, having a parent tell you that them hitting you hurts you more than them, and that they are doing it out of love, that is all you come to know and understand as love. And 4, with the many who privately messaged me talking about consideration of adoption, I ask you, are you doing that with the full understanding of adoption and all the ugly, or just the biased moral ego that has just been instilled? Just because people pay a lot doesn't mean they will treat a child right or well. There are many cases where adoptees are neglected, abused, etc. Adoption in itself is heavily influenced by religious manipulation, racism, homophobia, and classism. Most adoptive couples do not want open adoptions for fear of having their child stolen or taken away by the birth parents. There are also adoptive parents who turn the adoptee against the birth parents for multiple reasons. The biggest thing I have to say is I have to destroy my whole body, mental, and emotional health just to bring someone else the joy and happiness that they couldn't have in the first place? I have to carry the weight of being a birth parent that is shamed, ridiculed, and bullied by outsiders for being irresponsible, a possible addict, etc., while the adoptive parents are labeled as heroes and saviors? Plus, in looking at birth parents' support and help, where is it? There is little to none for birth parents, because they are forgotten for the sake of the adoptive parents/adoptee as their job is done. I implore everyone who suggests adoption as a solution to all problems when it comes to pregnancy and choices to actually look at adoption for all of its dark sides as well. Adoption is not always sunshine and roses. We cannot forget or neglect for the biases and ideals that we have been given. Please stop with the savior complex. Now, onto the actual update. Things have changed in the last month, and I've officially moved into my own apartment. My ex and I's last apartment ended up getting destroyed during Hurricane Helene, which I felt was the way of the universe telling me something positive. As for my dog, he is officially with me now. He did have to go into quarantine for about a week. They behavior checked him in a lot of situations, and he did great in all of them. Fortunately, since there were reports and support for him by friends, vets, vet techs, neighbors, the police, etc., he did not have to be put down. However, he does have to wear a muzzle when out and about in public spaces around men. He has started to adjust to our new living situation, but is doing much better. My pregnancy, that came and went in a way. Between my ex, dealing with the courts, police, moving, the situation with my dog, Hurricane Helene, mental health issues, etc., I did end up miscarriaging at 11 weeks and 3 days. I am thankful it went as smoothly as something like that can go, especially with what has been happening to women in the same situation. I've been trying to get my uterus taken out and my tubes tied, but since I live in such a red state area, it has been hard. They all talk about the what-ifs when dealing with the future husband and his wants of children, and I've been feeling discouraged and mad, but I want to keep trying. My ex has tried many times to contact me, including through my mother, who I do not want to speak with anymore. He has shown up to my job and asked when I was working, and where I am, etc. I've only recently blocked him, as I've been trying to get evidence to get a restraining order on him. I have what is needed, like threats, verbal abuse, and destruction of property, so I hope it all goes well. The police friends that I have been really helpful and still continue to check up on me. Apparently, DV cases are common in my area, and they don't want me to end up as they normally see women here do. I'm in therapy now, and I've been trying to keep a positive outlook. I wanted to thank everyone for their their kindness, support, encouragement, and knowledge. I cannot thank you all enough. And then finally, in the comments section, OP elaborates more regarding adoption and said, I find that interesting. Are you also looking at the stats of adopted children in cases of taking their own lives, mental illness, adoption, discrimination, etc. because of adoption? Are you also looking at stats including transracial or inter-country adoption? Of course, there is always positives to adoption, yet there are also many negatives as well that are overlooked. How many adoptees can claim to have positive outcomes or experiences yet not realize until they're older that they actually didn't? Many adoptees will still grow up without feeling connected, validated, or even properly seen. You may say that this is life with a lot of families, which is terrible in itself. Now imagine seeing that as an adopted child with people who you already have an internal disconnect with. Many also don't get to tell their own stories or get to express themselves in the negative feelings that come with being adopted. There is also the road of birth parents who are often ostracized for giving up their child, who do not get helped postpartum, who could never see their child again because the adoptive parents don't want them to, etc. Yes, there are positive examples such as Simone, Jimmy Butler, Aaron Judge, etc., but that doesn't mean all are. We also have to take into consideration that biased, manipulative narratives and untold stories that are never spoken to save others. I encourage you to Adoption Unfiltered and other works by all parties' adoptees, birth parents, and adoptive parents. We must read from all point of views, all sides, and more before saying things like adoption is positive by looking at specific stats and people to fit our own narrative. Adoption, like many things, is not for everyone and is not always a true solution. We cannot act like it always is. So I will comment on the start of the story and the end of the story here. I have never seen that before where someone was like, hey, we've been together so long that we're practically engaged. I don't even have to get down on one knee or ask or show you a ring. We're just engaged now. It's like common law marriage, but with engagement, and he just made it up. It's new Delulu for me. I haven't seen that before. And when I read that, I was like, ugh, that's kind of a red flag. But OP, even though, she seems, like she said, seems to have been a bit blind to the red flags and the negatives, she seems like a pretty smart person who got herself out pretty fast and also brought up some, I guess, fair points about adoption that I've never really thought about or considered. I don't know anybody adopted. It's not a daily discourse for me or anything like that. But, and we've seen some stories here. It's not for everyone. So I think it's very fair to say that and just encourage people to research it a bit more. Anyway, next story. Story number 2. I'm leaving my boyfriend after he drunkenly confessed something to me last night. My boyfriend and I, both 29, have been together for 2 years now. Before that, we were both married and got cheated on by our spouses. We were introduced to each other through mutual friends and thought we would get along since we went through the same thing. I have told everyone that us meeting that night was the greatest blessing because he came into my life at a very dark point in my life. In the past 2 years, we moved to a new town, started new jobs, and bought a house. I travel for work and he works 90 hours a week, so we both have no desire to have kids. I have a brother, 31M, who's been with a woman since 2020. They were supposed to get married, but called it off in 2022. Since then, they've been on and off together and really don't have a great relationship. That was until November when his girlfriend found out she was pregnant and they decided to get serious. They bought a house and have been going to couples therapy. The relationship seems to be working out now since they had their baby. They decided to host a 4th of July party at their house, and I attended with my boyfriend. I spent most of the night helping with cooking and helping my brother's girlfriend set up and watching my niece. Like every 4th of July party, there's people getting way too drunk and starting to act up. Once mostly everyone had left, my boyfriend, me, my brother, his girlfriend, and a couple of friends were sitting by the fire and having a few drinks. My boyfriend had a few too many drinks and was starting to act drunk, and he started telling random stories. And after a few random stories, he says to my brother's girlfriend, "Remember when we used to hook up last year?" My brother's girlfriend looks at him in shock, then starts apologizing to me. I just sat there in silence before leaving. Immediately after, I got text messages from his girlfriend, my boyfriend, and brother all trying to fix things and saying he didn't mean to tell me. His girlfriend texts me the story and says that they hooked up for a couple of months while I was working in another state, and she was broken up with my brother. I haven't replied to anyone's text messages and just spent the morning packing up all my stuff from the house and leaving with my car and the truck I bought for him. I already feel so much happier knowing what he did to me, and now that he's gone. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "I'm sorry, that's so effed up, especially that even your brother didn't tell you. Have you spoken to anyone since?" Then user 2 commented and said, I would be going no contact with my brother. We would have nothing to speak about going forward. Just knowing my boyfriend cheated on me with your girlfriend and everyone is smiling in my face afterwards while I'm the only one who doesn't know, I just couldn't come back from it. And then finally user 3 commented and said, he cheated on you with your brother's girlfriend and they all knew and no one said anything? What the hell? Why is your brother still with her? And why didn't he tell you? And did your boyfriend apologize for cheating or just apologize for telling you? Because it seems like he only is sorry for letting it slip. F them all. I would cut contact with all of them. And are you sure that the baby is your brother's? Update. Wow, looking at my original post and I never expected it to blow up like it did. I honestly forgot I made this post until my own story came up on my TikTok feed. So, here's my update. It took me a bit, but I have gone 100% no contact with my entire family and haven't heard from my ex-boyfriend since July. I sold our house, left my job, sold his truck, and bought a house in my favorite town closer to my best friends. It was a much-needed step to heal and move on with my life, and I found a great job there and grew closer to all my friends, especially my college best friend, Trey. I found myself venting to him all the time and him always being there if I needed someone. He's been my rock since the move, and I'm so extremely grateful for him. I finally made the move I think we've both been scared to make, and we are telling our friends tomorrow that we're officially dating. We're going on our first triple date as a friend group tomorrow. My life is so beautiful now that all the toxic people are gone and I'm in my happy place. Consider this post reminding you that it's okay to start over. I bet you will bloom all over again and your life will be 10 times better. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, congratulations, OP. Any idea what the other people are up to? Nope. I don't keep up with them anymore and I have everyone blocked. And then finally, user 2 commented and said, I was just thinking about your post yesterday. I'm so happy to hear that you cut those people out of your life and that you're doing so well. Man, wow, everyone knew but OP. Do you think like the brother, the boyfriend, and the girlfriend like just meet up once a week and just like giggle in a room? Like, she doesn't know. All right, bye. And then they just walk out and leave without saying anything. Oh, good for OP for just being like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. Anyway, I'm gonna head out, sell your truck. I got a new job, and I'm gonna go fall in love with the guy best friend who, pulled the long con. Anyway, next story. Story number 3. My husband's 36M affair daughter, 5F, was dropped off at our house 2 weeks ago, and it's causing issues in our marriage. Is there any way to salvage this? My 34F life is falling apart, and it's all thanks to my husband. We had a perfect life. Both of us worked in the jobs we loved. We have a beautiful daughter, 10F, and a healthy son, 5M. When I was pregnant with our son, we both almost died due to complications. So before the birth and even afterwards, I didn't want to have sex. Why would I? I almost died, and my body was in pain for months afterwards, even with strong medication. I thought my husband understood because he never pushed me for sex or even asked, and I thought it was because he understood my pain, but apparently he was just getting it from somewhere else. A few months ago, we were visited by Child Protective Services. I was terrified at first, frantically thinking of what we did wrong with our children to cause a visit, but no. As it turns out, some woman I've never met before died in a car accident, leaving behind a daughter, and my husband's name was on the girl's birth certificate, and he was named in the woman's will as the father. I thought it was a mistake at first, until my husband told me the truth. As it turns out, while I was suffering from my pregnancy and the after effects of almost dying, my husband would go to a woman he knew at work and get it off with her. He said this as if he did me a favor. Well, as the CPS worker explained to us, my husband is her closest living relative that can care for her. The woman's family apparently wanted nothing to do with the poor little girl. When she asked us if we wanted to take her in, I said yes. And yes, I know this might be the true cause of all my issues, but my husband pawned that poor girl off to live with her single mother for 5 years. He doesn't get to pawn her away when she needs help. She's his responsibility and is now ours. I told him I will help take care of the necessary visits for wellness checks and help with whatever CPS wants us to do. All he had to do was explain everything to our children. And the fact that I'm saying this tells you what he did. Yes. Nothing. We had to clean out a room and buy new furniture and even looked for some toys. Our children go to a private school, so I picked up some more work hours in order to be able to afford her tuition. I was the one who had to tell our extended families the big change because he didn't want to do so. I did almost all of the heavy lifting. So color me shocked when his daughter finally joins our family 2 weeks ago and the first word out of our children's mouth was, "Who's that?" Yes, I was the one who had to tell our children's school, extended families, family doctors, and my workplace about my husband's affair and subsequent addition to our family. But he couldn't tell our children, being he was too ashamed to face them. So guess who was the one who had to explain that they have a sister now, as I'm trying to settle the poor girl into her new home and room. And shocker, our children didn't take the news well, as it was happening right in front of them. My daughter was screaming while crying, causing my son and the little girl to cry. A situation that could have been avoided if my husband just did the one thing I asked of him and explained everything to them much sooner. It's been 2 weeks of her living with us, and the situation hasn't improved. My husband has not picked up the slack that comes with having a new addition to the family, so we're struggling right now to make ends meet. I feel embarrassed bringing all 3 children around for appointments and groceries because the little girl is very much obviously not mine, and I can tell people are judging our family. My daughter is much moodier and less happy and refuses to even acknowledge our newest addition to the family. Our son doesn't really understand what is going on, and it's even causing him to lash out. And I don't even know how to help the poor little girl, because I know that if I feel like my life is falling apart, then she must feel even worse. I suggested family therapy for our children, even just marriage therapy, so we can hopefully move past this and work together as a unit for all the children. He's refused everything, though, saying that he knows he'll be lectured by everyone, when all he was doing was trying to help me. I just don't know how to fix this. Please help me. I don't want to divorce him because I just know that will make it worse for the kids. But that's the only option my family is telling me. Meanwhile, his family is begging me to make this work and to just look past it. Edit. Thank you. I hear you all loud and clear. I will be looking into therapy for me and the children, and hopefully a good divorce lawyer. But first, I need to get some answers because some of you are raising some good points. Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on if she's sure that her husband isn't cheating now and said, I know this is pathetic to say, but I really did think he was amazing before all of this. When I gave birth to our daughter, he stepped up to the plate by caring for her and doing housework. He was an attentive father to both of our children before all of this. I was able to tell him I needed to take a break, and he would just step to it and take care of them and make sure I could relax. I don't know why he committed such an affair and then tried to excuse himself, and I don't know why he's decided not to care about our children as much as he used to before. I guess I just keep hoping if we all go to therapy and find the root of the issue, we can fix it and go back to how our relationship used to be. Now, reading all of these comments that are sounding just like my family, I guess I was just being naive. And then finally, OP elaborated on leaving the child to her father as the girl is not her responsibility and was told to leave her husband and said, I have to disagree with this comment. As much as I hate my husband's actions, I do not hate her enough to just abandon her in such a terrible time for her. I agreed to take her into our home, so she is indeed my responsibility, as much as my husband's. And I didn't say this at first because I didn't know if it was important, but she and my son have gotten really close in such a short amount of time that I would feel heartbroken separating the two. Update. I'm sorry, you were all right. It was a lie. When all of you were pointing out how the kids' responses to the youngest arriving didn't make sense, it made me realize how correct that is. They came home to a room all made up, and I made passing comments to them asking about how excited they were for the youngest's arrival. They should have known about her. At this point, I decided to just ask my eldest daughter directly because she was still so upset about it, and I think subconsciously knew I wasn't going to get the truth from my husband. So I went to her room while she was lying in her bed, and I asked her. I told her that I asked her father to explain to the two of them what was going to happen. They saw her new room. I spoke about her to them, so I don't understand my eldest's reaction. So yes, it turns out my husband didn't tell them and then me the truth. A surprise to no one, I am figuring out. The story he told the kids was that the youngest was a daughter of one of our friends, and we felt so bad we had to take her in. Nothing about her being their half-sister or him having a daughter with another woman. Well, when she came home that day and the kids asked who she was, the pictures we were able to share of youngest, she had braids in and wore much different clothing than when she arrived. It was my response to them that ruined his little lie. I introduced her and I was like, this is your half-sister, remember? And our son was too young to really get what it meant, but our daughter did. That's why she freaked out that day. Not because of the new addition to the family, but because what the new addition meant. I apologized for causing her to freak out that day, for not sitting both her and her brother down for a real discussion over how they feel and to make sure that their father did what he was supposed to, and apologized for only talking to her now after she had a much-deserved reaction to it all. My daughter accepted the apology, and I asked her if that was why she was distant from the youngest. She told me that's part of it, and because word word got out at her school about what the newest addition to our family going to the school meant, so now she's getting teased and picked on for having a father who cheated. Broke my heart realizing just how badly I messed up. By continuing to beg the spineless man they called a father to help them, and then by allowing myself to get shut down, I was essentially allowing all the kids' needs to be ignored. I told my eldest daughter I will sign her, her brother, and her sister up for therapy. Of course, the pathetic man tried to plead with me not to when I mentioned signing the kids up, but I told him to give it up already. All three children's lives have changed, and it will help them adjust with a professional to speak to. He's been grumbling and whining about it, but I don't care anymore. And this might cause many to be upset with me, but I'm in the process with my husband to have him transfer custody of the youngest over to me. I've grown to care for her, and as some comments in my last post have pointed out, once I do divorce him and leave with our kids, I don't doubt he'll treat her awfully or neglect her. He's been right on board, and it took some convincing, but his parents finally agreed to be witnesses. I got all the paperwork set up and scheduled an appointment with an attorney to help with anything else. Once that happens, I'll try to get everything I need in order to have a smoother divorce and then subsequently move to be closer to my family. Thank you to everyone for giving me a good slap in the face and help me realize that the children and I deserve better. And I was being so gullible into thinking a man who cheats on his dying pregnant wife is deserving of any respect. New update. How do you tell your children you're going to divorce their father? I have 3 children, an 11-year-old daughter and 2 6-year-olds, a son and daughter. Just recently, after months of court hearings, home visits, background checks, and interviews with the judge and a social service worker, I've been granted custody of my 6-year-old daughter, with her biological father, my husband, giving up parental rights to me. Right now, I'm looking into how a divorce will go and what I need to get any affairs in order to make the process as smooth as possible for everyone involved. The reason for the divorce is because of how he behaved when his adultery came into light. As you can see from the ages, he cheated on me with a coworker of his while I was dealing with a highly complicated pregnancy and birth. I was the one who had to get everything in order. Meanwhile, it seemed like he did everything he could to make the process of a new addition to our family as difficult as possible. He lied to our children, refused to take all 3 children to therapy, and when I did take them, he whined and complained, refused to take an extra workload to help our budget stabilize after a new addition, refused to even acknowledge the children were struggling, and even refused to take all 3 children out and about because he didn't want people to judge him. But it was perfectly fine for me to go through it. Basically, it felt like I was the only one trying to repair our family and have us more forward, while he made damn sure we were stuck and hurting because he refused to acknowledge that he messed up. Divorce is the only option for me at this point. I just want to know, how can I explain this to my children? I've seen how refusing to actually explain to children can hurt them. Hell, I was the one picking up the pieces from the last time thanks to him. I just don't want there to be any more lashing out or fighting. I'm terrified for my eldest in particular. She was the one most hurt by all of these changes, and I know she'll understand why. The last thing I want is for her to blame her siblings or herself. I have yet to tell anyone else my plans for divorce because I don't want it getting back to him or the kids before I'm ready. And if there is no way to make the impact easier, how can I make it less damaging for them? And then in the comments section, OP replied to a comment providing more information and said, "Okay, let me try to help. I'm sorry for the confusion. I discovered her existence about a year ago because her biological mother died in a car accident. It's a little confusing here, and he still won't give me the why of this, but he was on her birth certificate as the father. So, social services did the usual of home visits and background checks to place her with us because I refused to allow him to turn his back on her and have her struggle in the foster care system. I am a nurse in the pediatric trauma center, and I have been there as emotional support for children when they've been told about a parent's passing in accidents or we had to make the tough call to CPS for abuse cases. I do not wish for anyone to witness when a child realizes that they're an orphan or being taken away from their parents. It's why I pushed for us to take her in. People on Reddit have told me that I'm too much of a saint for taking her in, and that's why they don't believe me. But if you've ever had to rub the back of a 4-year-old having her first panic attack because she was told her parents didn't survive, I hope you understand why I refused to ignore a 5-year-old who this time I could save from the system. After the fallout that was primarily caused by my husband, and truth be told, I also have some blame for it as well, I decided to divorce him. I asked him to transfer her custody to me because I knew after the divorce, there's a high chance they would keep her with him and he wouldn't be a good father to her. I did not want to risk the chance of that. I know that if I was the one to have custody of her, I won't have to worry about that in the divorce. And it's only the 6-year-old daughter he transferred custody over to. He still is a recognized father to our biological children. And thank you for the suggestion of age-appropriate dialogue for our children. I do have some training on that because of my work, so I could try to rework it to make sense for a divorce. And probably bump up therapy for the children. So, first and foremost, this is a story that we read a long time ago, but we had a new update here today, which is why we're reading it. So I don't want to see any, is this a repeat comments? Or I will turn this car around, so help me God. But as for the story and OP, I mean, she is a saint, taking in a kid that, I mean, could have just been left to the wolves, to the foster care system. And I mean, we just heard about that in the other story. So, I mean, she doesn't have to do that. Nobody expects her to do that. But she's like, I'm doing it. I don't trust my ex-husband or my future ex-husband because that guy's a dolt and a dimwit and a dumb, you know what. But, I don't know, just good for her. And she's doing, I mean, she's being super mom right now. 3 kids, all in therapy, divorce time, breaking the news. And what is he doing? Playing Fortnite? He probably sucks at it. Let's be honest. He plays build mode, but doesn't know how to build, and for some reason refuses to play no build. This guy just sucks all around, so the divorce was probably best for OP, because he was weighing her down. If you want to fly, cut off what's weighing you down. Anyway, next story. Story number 4. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that my life would be better without her? My wife, Anne, and I have been married for 13 years. I am 43 and she is 46. We do not have children. When we first began dating, nobody could make me happy like Anne. She always seemed to know exactly the right thing to say to me when I was down. But over the past decade or so, she really started to show her true colors, and a lot of what her ex-husband said to me about her has begun to make more sense. For example, I have a very high-stress job. People bring me problems, and I fix those problems. But when I get home, 9 times out of 10, Anne just has more problems to throw onto my plate. She doesn't work, so she's free to do anything she wants to solve said problems during the day. But lately, she has even begun making lists of things that she wants me to do after I work all day. But my biggest issue with Anne is that I can't ever really open up to her about anything. Whenever I talk about something bad that happened to me, she'll either try to one-up me or agree with the person who wronged me. Last Friday, I had a horrible day. There was an enormous problem at work that basically all fell on my shoulders to solve. Then, when I was crossing the street after work, I had a green signal and a bicycle blew through a red and side-clipped me and yelled a whole bunch of horrible things at me and then rode away. I thought about calling the police because it was technically a hit and run, but there was probably nothing they could do. When I got home, desperate, I spoke to Anne about what happened. She listened and then immediately took the cyclist's side. I reiterated that the cyclist ran through a red light, to which she responded that cyclists aren't obligated to stop. When I told her she was wrong and tried to put the issue to rest, she began frantically Googling laws. She found that in our state, they can treat lights like a stop sign. She began triumphantly reading the law to me loudly, word for word, getting louder when I kept trying to tell her that I wasn't interested. At the end of her spiel, she gave me this incredibly arrogant look, as if she was right. I just stared at her for a second and said that my life would be better without her. She got incredibly upset, shrieked at me until her voice was hoarse, and then packed a bag and left to stay with her parents. She has texted me all weekend demanding an apology, but I haven't responded. Did I do something unforgivable here? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, OP, what did her ex say to you about her? He called her, quote, a colossal manipulative female dog. I nearly hit him when he said that to me. Honestly, if anyone deserves an apology here, it may be him. Then user 2 commented and said, sounds like problem solved actually. You said what needed saying and she left. Done and done. Do you need help on first steps for contacting a lawyer or something? Because otherwise, it sounds like you got her out of your house with minimal effort. And then finally, user 3 said, wait, if the cyclist is supposed to treat it like a stop sign, then shouldn't it stop and yield to oncoming traffic to you, who has the green light? So she's wrong and still triumphantly claiming victory? Personally, I think you could have elaborated a little on how she sucks the life out of you. But that's just me being petty. I hope the best for you, OP. Update. 2 weeks ago, I had an argument with my wife, Anne. This argument stemmed from Anne's incessant need to contradict me in everything I say. Anne left in a fit of rage to stay with her parents, and then kept spamming me with text messages demanding an apology. A few days after Anne left, I felt something I hadn't in a long time at home. Peace. I didn't have someone nagging me about literally everything I did. I didn't have to eat my meals in the correct order. Something about pH balance that she probably saw from some brain rot creator on TikTok. I could actually enjoy myself, which is impossible when Anne is around because I found many years ago that she tends to get the most aggressive when I seem like I'm either in a very good mood or in a very bad mood. I then did something that I never thought I'd do. I reached out to her ex. He was more than eager to talk about Anne and her shenanigans, so we met up for drinks. He and I had both near identical experience with her. Anne is through and through a pretty horrible person, especially to her romantic partners. He cited irreconcilable differences for divorcing her, where it was no specific event, but just a long list of terrible interactions and coming to the realization that he detested her as a person. During this time, Anne went silent on me. I used this lull in our relationship to visit a lawyer, who then told me that due to the nature of laws in our state and the fact that Anne is able-bodied and educated, the chances of me ever having to pay alimony are basically zero. I called Anne at that point. She, for some reason, still expected an apology, and I told her that I wanted a divorce. She threatened to take everything from me, and I said she could try, but any further contact should be done through my lawyer. I'm fully happy to split our assets fairly. I'm fairly sure that Anne will agree to any deal that gives her more than half. It's just the way she is. And if it's a 55-45 split, I don't care. All I have to do is act like she got the better of me, and since she's an idiot, she'll happily agree. But thanks to everyone who responded in the last post with advice. Tons of you suggested divorce, which I think was what actually got me to consider it seriously. I love this story because it's like the typical cliche boomer humor, I hate my wife, but he actually has reason to hate her, and now he's like, oh, thank God she's gone. I can have some peace and quiet. What do you mean you have to wash your feet every time you come home and eat your food in the correct order? Excuse me? What does her pH balance and TikTok have to do with that? And then he literally met with the ex and he's like, yeah, bro, I've been there. You know, actually, does she do this? Does she still do that? Oh man, when we were together, she did X and Y. Oh my God. They really got together and like, bro, let me tell you what she does. And he's like, I know. Oh, she sounds like a horrible person, to be honest. And I can't believe OP was in that relationship for 13 years. Like, he said the first 3 were good, but then he's like, well, the past decade, things have been getting pretty bad. Oh my God. But you know what? Now he can go do things that a 43-year-old does. Anyway, next story. Story number 5. Am I the a-hole for not splitting my college fund with my dad's affair child? My father dropped a big bomb on our family last year when he revealed that he had a secret son from his affair years ago. After my mom found out and gave him the ultimatum, he cut things off with his mistress and she moved away until last year when she introduced him to their son Hank. Now, I really don't give a damn about his latent father instinct since he didn't give his other family any consideration when he broke the news. Thank God, my mom divorced him, and now neither my brother, Connor, M18, my sister, Sophia, F18, or I want anything to do with him anymore. Here's the thing though, we have a shared college fund that my mom's parents set up for us when we were little. My parents contribute almost half of the money, and my maternal grandparents contribute the other half. The account remains under my mom after the divorce. As far as I know, he stopped contributing to that account after the divorce. Last month, I found out that my dad's been harassing my mom because he wanted to add Hank as a beneficiary to the college fund for my siblings. He is saying that Hank is his son and therefore entitled to the college fund that he set up for me, Connor, and Sophia. My mom told him off, and now he has been going around harassing her online and to their mutual acquaintances and friends, claiming that she is heartless and cruel for taking her anger out on an innocent child. And then he also had the genius idea to reach out to me to put pressure on my mom. He said I should consider opening my heart up to Hank, who grew up without a father and wasn't set up in life like my siblings and I. I left him on red since honestly, the things I wanted to say to that callous evil monster may be too much. Well, yesterday he changed his tactics and now said he wanted to withdraw all his part of the money from the account, divided them to make sure Hank has his share, and deposited the rest back into the account. All of this with the caveat that since Connor and I didn't need to use the college fund for tuition since we both had full-ride scholarships, the money would be divided into 2 parts, for Hank and Sophia, instead of into 4 parts for his 4 children. And now him, some of my dad's side of the family, and even the mistress are pressuring my mom to agree to that, and I'm praying that she won't. It physically makes me angry that we're being asked to split our money with my dad's affair child. Even if, yes, I don't need to use the money to pay for school, I will need it in the future. Same with Connor. And I know for a fact he would never use the same reasoning to exclude Connor and I from the fund just to have the money solely for Sophia in the same situation. It's all for Hank. I understand that Hank is innocent in all of this and not responsible for his parents' actions, but I don't think of him as my brother. Hell, I don't even think of my father as my father anymore, to be honest. As far as I'm concerned, my family consists of me, my siblings, and my mom. That's it. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. By the way, I am 23 years old and Hank is 14. Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on what type of fund it is and said, where I live, if the funds are unused due to scholarship, we can withdraw it and won't be penalized. specialized, and I'm considering getting a master's, so even if I didn't have to pay for undergraduate, I will probably need it for grad school. The fund is a state-sponsored savings plan. Sorry, I can't give the actual name since it's very specific to where we live. Then one user commented and said, "Not the a-hole at all. Where does your father get the idea that he set up this fund when it was your grandparents on your mom's side? Does his family members know the whole story?" Yeah, that man's delusion is out of this world. His audacity is truly unmatched. My paternal grandparents know and support us. I know my grandma has been trying to get him to back off, but he unfortunately doesn't listen to her. It's mainly my dad's brothers who are joining him to harass my mom, and I don't know if they know the full story or not. Since grandma and grandpa know, I feel like they do too. Then the consensus in the comment section was that OP was not the a-hole. Update. Thank you so much everyone for the support and advice. I really appreciate it. I spoke to my mom this morning about getting the lawyer involved and also about a potential restraining order. She has been talking to a lawyer about dad's demands, and it looks like he really doesn't have any rights to it. I think some of you are correct that he is doing all of this because he knows he won't win in court. As for a restraining order, mom is hesitant to do it right now since dad has visitation rights with Sophia and she doesn't want to make it too complicated for my sister. But she promised me that if things get worse, she will get one. My brother Connor and I also spoke and will be taking turns coming home from the weekend so mom and Sophia won't be alone just in case anything happens. Some clarifications, by the way. We haven't involved mom's parents since their health isn't the best right now. Grandpa was really shocked when he heard about the cheating, plus secret son of dad, that he had a heart attack. Thank God he's mostly recovered now. However, none of us want to put stress on him. According to Dad, he never knew about Hank's existence until last year when his mistress came back. Nobody in our family knew really until Dad brought Hank to a family event to break the news to us. He blindsided and humiliated my mom, and it was the final straw for her. They divorced after that. And I honestly don't hate Hank. It's just that right now I can't imagine spending time with him. He's a minor still, so everything will have to involve either our father or his mother. And that is a no for me right now. Perhaps in the future things will be different. Who knows? Hopefully things get resolved soon. But thank you again everyone for the amazing advice and words of support. Story number 6. My F23 boyfriend M26's little brother creeps me out, but my boyfriend isn't taking it seriously. I don't know what to do. Hi there, I'm not really sure how to handle this situation and would appreciate some advice. I, 23F, have been with my boyfriend, 26M, for almost 3 years, and we live together. Recently, his parents were arrested. I'd rather not get into the details, and as a result, his little brother, 11M, has had to move in with us. I understand the situation is complicated, and my boyfriend didn't really have a choice. Obviously, he couldn't just leave his brother with nowhere to go. The thing is, I find his little brother creepy, and I feel horrible for even saying that. I know he's a kid and he's gone through a traumatic experience, but some of the things he does make me really uncomfortable. For instance, he stares at me a lot, like almost all the time when we're in the same room. I'll catch him just watching me, and it's unsettling. He also has this habit of walking into our bedroom without knocking, especially when my boyfriend is out. I've told him multiple times that he needs to knock, but he either ignores it or just doesn't care. He will shower and use the bathroom with the door wide open, clearly so everyone can see him when walking past, even though I have told him he needs to keep the door closed when he's in there. One time I had just gotten out of the shower and was in my towel when I walked into the bedroom, and he was just standing there staring at me. I asked him what he was doing and he didn't even answer. He just kept staring before finally walking away. I brought this up to my boyfriend, but he brushed it off, saying his brother is probably just adjusting to everything and doesn't mean any harm. I lent him my laptop because he said he needed it for homework, and when I got it back, it was completely filled with adult content. Like he had downloaded adult content. It was in the search history. I told my boyfriend he needed to speak with him, but my boyfriend says it's normal for a boy his age. He just told me to clear the search history and delete what he downloaded. But he is not being normal. He is weirding me out, and I feel bad for even saying it. I get that this kid is dealing with a lot. Losing his parents like that is traumatic. But at the same time, I feel like my feelings are being dismissed. My boyfriend says I'm overreacting, but I honestly feel really uncomfortable in my own home now. I even find myself avoiding being alone with his brother because it just feels weird. I don't know if I'm overreacting. Like, I understand giving some leeway because of everything that's happening in his life, but he is really weirding me out. Any advice on how to handle this would be really appreciated. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Get a lock for the door. Get that kid in therapy and start discussing things like boundaries and healthy relationships. What they are, what they mean. Close the door on him in the bathroom, and eventually it will click. He's probably not talking because he just went through some hellish trauma. Allow yourself, your boyfriend, and the brother some grace for this adjustment period. You could also consider living separately for a while if that's in your best interest. Just take care of yourself. You got this." Then user 2 commented and said, "This kid sounds like he really needs therapy. This is way beyond what you should be getting advice online for. I know he's just a kid now, but what about a few years from now? This behavior is not normal. None of what you describe is even close to normal for a boy his age. Therapy, and it might take a while to find a good therapist, is your really only good option." Then user 3 commented and said, "This kid has serious issues, OP, and needs to be in therapy. Like now. It's super concerning that your boyfriend isn't taking it seriously and is dismissing your feelings. He is undoubtedly feeling really overwhelmed right now, but that's no reason to put so much of this onto you. IMO, you need to put your foot down and tell your boyfriend that if he won't take it seriously and get his brother help, that you don't feel safe and comfortable in the home and that you're leaving. Make it clear you're not saying it's me or your brother, it's everyone's mental health." And then finally, user 4 said, "OP, I'm not sure anyone has mentioned this yet, but some of his behaviors indicate sexual trauma or child abuse. Being hypersexual, doing age-inappropriate things, not understanding physical boundaries, and seeking out adult content at 11 years of age are all indicators that this child has witnessed, experienced, or been exposed to things that were inappropriate. Your boyfriend may be jaded because he came from the same household, but he better wake up, get his head screwed on straight, and take this seriously. Allowing an 11-year-old to knowingly have access to adult content is considered SA and child endangerment in some places. I understand your feelings. They're valid. Something is off with this child. However, before you jump straight to fearing him, try to put his behavior into perspective and look at things from a different point of view. Your boyfriend took guardianship of him. He needs to start acting like a guardian and start talking to his brother like an adult talks to a child. This child needs boundaries, and he needs to know that his behavior is unacceptable. Your boyfriend needs to tell him that when he uses the restroom or showers, the door remains closed. He needs to know it's unacceptable behavior to search for adult content. If he can't be trusted with the computer, he will not be allowed to use the computer, or will only be permitted to do so under one of your supervision. This child needs therapy ASAP. You and your boyfriend need guidance and assistance. If DCS or a similar agency is involved, reach out and ask for help for this child, and ask what you can do to get him help. Update. Hey guys, I wanted to give you all an update on my post from about 6 weeks ago. First and foremost, thank you all for sending me the love, advice, and well wishes. A lot of you guys pointed out that my boyfriend, Caleb, seemed to be overwhelmed and was just sticking his head in the sand. And honestly, yeah. I sat him down a little while after I posted here, and we spoke about his brother and everything going on, and he just started crying to me. He has cried in front of me maybe twice before, so I knew he was really feeling it. He said he was really sorry for the way he'd been acting, and that he was just feeling so stressed that he was just pushing everything down and away. He agreed that Avery's behavior was unacceptable, and that I told him he needed to have a firm conversation with Avery, his brother, about boundaries, or I just wouldn't be able to live with them much longer. Caleb said he would enforce a change of rules, and then he started sobbing, went gray, and started hyperventilating, and I was seriously concerned and confused about what was happening. He then said he needed to tell me something. I was comforting him and trying to calm him down, and he told me he was a victim of pretty extreme CSA from his dad, and he thought Avery probably was as well, which we later found out was true. That explained a lot, why Avery had no awareness of boundaries, why he was displaying these weirdly sexual behaviors, why we had such a low contact with his parents before all of this. But I met his parents, met them multiple times. Yeah, we had low contact with them, but I met them. I had been to their house. They just seemed like normal people, nice people. They weren't creepy or scary or weird. I was really shocked at everything Caleb told me. Caleb had been hiding it for so many years, and he felt so ashamed that he hadn't reported it sooner. He said he was really hoping that the abuse hadn't also happened to Avery, and so I think he was trying so hard to ignore any signs that he had. He said he felt responsible because he never reported his dad, which meant the abuse could continue. But I told him none of this was his fault. He has no blame in him being abused or Avery being abused. We sought advice on what to do. We reported what Caleb had said to the police and to social services. Both Avery and Caleb were interviewed, but we haven't heard much back from the police about anything that might happen next. They said it could be a long process if they managed to bring any charges at all. Social services started giving us more support though. Avery has been behaving a lot better since. He's been listening to boundaries more. He's actually changed a lot in the short time since I posted here last. He's come out a bit more as a pretty charming and charismatic boy, even though if I'm totally honest, he's still a little weird, but maybe that's to be expected after having the life he had. I got him into scouts and he's made a pack of really close friends, who's even come over a few times. He's been getting on well with school, although they said he's only KS1 level work, but I'm sure he'll catch up on time. And even if not, it's not the end of the world. Thanks everyone. So I have to say I am impressed with that final commenter who kind of pretty much called it. And I mean, I didn't even pick up on that. Maybe you guys do with these sort of stories, but like we see so many stories that you're like, oh, okay, I have a feeling I know where this is going. I have an idea of why they're behaving this way. But for this particular story, I didn't pick up on that. So I'm surprised someone did, but I'm glad someone did. And then the boyfriend broke down and revealed all those horrible things. And like that same commenter said, like, look at it from their perspective. Like, try and be a little bit more understanding. Like, yes, you have feelings here, but also they're going through it. And, you know, this, I guess, has a good ending. Like, everything that should be done seems like it was done. OP didn't mention therapy. I really hope that the little brother gets that. But I mean, they went to the police. The kid's doing better. The truth came out. I mean, I was going to say hopefully mom and dad are in jail, but they're already in jail? Is there such thing as double jail? We will look into that, people. Anyway, next story. Story number 7. Am I the a-hole for telling my brothers I won't be the one to be our mom's caretaker? I am one of 3 boys. I'm 35. My brothers are 26 and 23. It started when the 26-year-old asked who is going to take care of mom when she's nearing her end of life. I stayed quiet because I have an extremely strained relationship with our mom. When I was 14, my mom cheated on my dad with his best friend, and she kicked him out of her house that she inherited from my grandparents. She was a drug addict, had her car repossessed, couldn't pay her bills, so I was doing homework in candlelight and taking cold showers, got beat one time because I found her drugs and flushed it down the toilet in front of her. My junior and senior year, she was dating different guys, leaving at night when we were all asleep and then coming home in the morning after I was awake, getting ready for school and getting my brothers up ready for school. She would always say, I had to run to the store real quick, but I would be awake in the middle of the night when she would leave. My mom is clean now, but she's a functioning alcoholic. She put my dad into massive credit card debt leading up to their split due to her drug problems. Neither of my parents have a retirement. They don't have any savings. My mom still works at 65 years old. She's a hairdresser and she's going to have to continue working up until her arms and legs won't let her anymore. My brothers have this extremely rose-tinted glasses for their childhood. They thought it was amazing. They remember me always hanging out with them, letting them sleep in my room, playing video games, taking them to get lunch and stuff. They didn't see all the stuff that was going on with her mom because they were too young. They know about everything now, but they don't hold the same resentment for our mom that I do. Because of my strained relationship with my mom, I got a vasectomy. My wife and I don't want kids because I don't want another life to be our responsibility. I've had my fair share of raising kids with my brothers. So, when I finally told them we don't have any obligation to take care of our parents, they made their decisions and have to deal with them. And if they can't financially take care of themselves, that's their problem. I even said whoever wants to move in with mom and take care of her, they can have the house after she dies. I will help by taking her to the grocery store, making sure she has things that she needs, but I won't take care of her. They called me cold and selfish, and that they knew I didn't have that caretaker mentality. I love my brothers. They are 2 of the most important people in the world to me, but our mom has been exhausting to have in my life. So, am I the a-hole because I refuse to take care of my mom when she needs end-of-life care? Also, this post is long and I feel like I jumped all over the place. I'm sorry. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, nope, I left home at 17 and never looked back. So, I am more on the page with you. Same bad scenario, not the a-hole. I am starting to see the atrocities families do to each other and expect allegiance. I thought it was just mine. After I left home, I saw the whole world doing things to each other in the name of family. If you have good relationships with them, good. However, to expect it is unreasonable and not even healthy. I would sit down at some point and tell them what your experience was like. I'm sorry you had a similar situation. It's tough because I have explained my experience with them. They both are the type to sweep things under the rug, and they just asked me, how long am I going to hold on to that resentment? She's not like that anymore. But every time I am with her, I get triggered all over again. I can't be in the same room with her more than an hour or two, and then I have to leave. They don't understand why. Then user 2 commented and said, OP, you're entitled to feel and do as you please. However, I have questions as to why you hate her so much, but when your dad got kicked out, why didn't he take you? Or at any time during those years, why did he stand by and watch her treat you badly and do nothing about it? Dads get it so easy just by leaving. They can claim, oh, she didn't let me or whatever, and y'all eat that crap up. But the reality is, if one parent saw the other parent doing drugs, not being financially responsible, neglecting or abusing the children, and they do nothing to stop it legally by obtaining an attorney and enforcing their parental rights, then what? Are they really any better? They don't have the excuse of addiction. Your pops literally allowed it too, but your focus is on hating on your mom. And that's where my concern is. Dude, you really need therapy to work out that crap because the hatred for one parent over the other when both sucked is crazy. At least she can blame the drugs. What's your dad's excuse? My dad had us every Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Saturday. He didn't have a great job. Part of the reason we went into debt is because his job moves to another state and my mom was unwilling to move. So he lost his good-paying job and had to find a new job without a degree. That's when my mom kept spending money like he was still working and maxing out credit cards and using money to buy drugs. When I found out my mom was using, I hid it from my brothers and dad in fear my mom would be taken to prison or us taken away from her. He was paying off credit cards in his name that she racked up and renting a room in a house that was not fit for children. So he would pick us up on Tuesday and Thursday, take us to dinner or Chuck E. Cheese, and then drop us off. And Saturday was sports day, and he coached my brother's baseball teams, so they were constantly at practice. My dad was a genuinely good dad and loves us completely. He's my brother's biological father and my adoptive father. My biological father I am in no contact with because he left us when I was 2. And then finally, user 3 said, not the a-hole. You may want to include your parents in this discussion. Let them know that you've discussed this with your wife and these are the limits of what you'll do. But with no promises, circumstances may change. You may move away. And no more than that, you definitely will not be a caregiver. Your first responsibility is to your wife. They should plan accordingly. Thank you. I like this response because this is exactly how I feel. Update. So, I sent my brothers this text message and I said to them, to tell me I don't have that caretaker instinct when I took care of you guys growing up, even after I moved out, I bought you guys school clothes and stuff. I was there while mom was off effing around in the middle of the night. I was there taking care of you when you woke up crying because mom wasn't home and I sat with you while you fell back asleep. I woke you guys up in the morning to help you guys get ready for school. I stayed with you guys while mom and sissy were doing drugs. I watched you over weekends. I fed you lunches and dinners. I let you guys sleep in my room when we didn't have power because mom couldn't afford the electric bill. I was the only one with a car in the family and I took you guys to and from school while also dropping mom off at work and picking her up while going to college and working. I did my part in taking care of her. I helped raise you guys, but you don't see it that way because you were too young. I had to grow up way too fast. So please don't make me feel guilty because I don't want to be mom's caretaker when I feel like I did my part when I was younger, taking care of you guys for her. If it was either of you needing caretaking, that's a different story. I parented you guys growing up. I was there a lot when our parents weren't. I love you guys, and I don't hold you guys responsible, and I would do it all over again if I needed to. And that was the message that I sent. And this was the 26-year-old's response afterwards. He said to me, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, and wasn't trying to say you didn't take care of us. I shouldn't have said that you don't have that caretaker instinct. I was thinking of it in a parental aspect, since you literally said you don't have a kid because you don't want responsibility for anyone else. I wasn't trying to make it sound like you didn't care for us. And then my brothers left it at that. I'm going to stand my ground. I think I will also have this conversation with my mom to let her know. My 23-year-old brother is her favorite and perfect son, and he has the best relationship with her and still lives with her. He said he's already accepted he's probably the one who's going to have to take care of her. But the next time the three of us are in the same place, we will sit down and have a real conversation about why I won't be the caretaker. But I'm willing to talk about other solutions. Thank you all for the amazing responses. I probably will seek out therapy. I've never heard of parentification before, and probably do have a lot of things I need to work out. Thank you all. So this had a pretty fair resolution, I think. Not much to add here. I'm always, proposing therapy. The story before this with the kid, everyone was like, yo, OP, take that kid to freaking therapy. But OP, he didn't even know what parentification is. And let's be honest, this is, grade A parentification, textbook, borderline, over the line parentification, dare I say. So I feel like he's going to learn about it and be like, like, holy crap, that's me. So glad OP's going to therapy, glad the brothers totally understood where he comes from, and it seems like the 23-year-old, the youngest brother, probably already realizes he's gonna do it, and doesn't seem like he has a problem. It seems like, I don't know, it seems like he's accepted that, so hopefully he's fine with that too. But anyway, next story. Story number 8. Am I the a-hole for tricking my sister-in-law into stealing our baby name? So, I, 33F, have been married to my husband Kevin, 35M, for 5 years. We have a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm currently pregnant with twins, male and female. My brother-in-law Terrence, 38M, has been married to his wife Jess, 39F, for 7 years. Jess and I are total opposites. Jess is an extrovert. She's kind of loud, boisterous, and some would even say abrasive. I am an introvert. I'm not quiet or shy, but I am reserved. I'm also very observant. The first time I met Jess, I told Kevin that we would be like oil and water. We have never been overtly hostile towards each other, but also have never gone out of our way to bond. Unfortunately, Terrence and Jess had fertility issues for several years before finally having their son a couple of weeks ago. Prior to this, Jess was also very odd towards us when I was pregnant with our daughter. The best way to describe this was very hot and cold. One minute she pretended like she didn't care what we were talking about at family gatherings, and the next she was volunteering to throw the baby shower. I gave a firm no to that. We both assumed the behavior was because of their fertility issues and didn't think too much of it. But the strangest thing she did was almost demand to know what we were naming our daughter before we announced it. She asked us constantly after our gender reveal and got visibly annoyed when we just laughed her off and said it was a secret. We couldn't understand why the hell she cared so much, as she was not expecting it this time. Regardless, we didn't share the name with anyone. Well, when our daughter was born and her name was finally announced, Jess was kind of obsessed with it. I don't know how to explain it. She just kept going on and on about how beautiful and unique it was. To this day, she comments about how different it is. The name we chose is a pretty common Welsh name, which wouldn't be at all that different except for the fact that we are African American. I've always gravitated towards names from different regions and found and fell in love with the name years ago and never shared it with anyone prior to Kevin. Fast forward to both of us being pregnant at the same time, Jess's odd behavior continued towards me, but this time it was more blatant. Snarky comments under the guise of jokes about how big I was going to get with 2 babies and that my body would never snap back like it did after our daughter. She even accused us of getting pregnant on purpose after she announced her own pregnancy, even though the whole family knew we were actively trying, and at the time of her announcement. I was already a few weeks along and didn't know. One thing about me, introvert or not, I'm no pushover and will stand up for myself. But I chose to ignore Jess because I knew that would get to her more than confronting her would, since she seems to thrive off drama. Jess was obviously much further along than we are. However, we did have our gender reveal prior to Jess giving birth. And right on cue, the baby name interrogation started again, because they decided not to find out the gender of their baby in advance. Jess kept hounding us for both of the names that we had already picked out, but again, we declined to answer. After days of this, I got annoyed, and I asked Kevin if he thought the reason for her insistence was that so she could use the name first since she was due first. He kind of chuckled until he realized I was serious, and said he didn't think so, but that anything was possible. So I said, let's test it. We were due to host my father-in-law's birthday at our house a couple of weeks later, and I decided to leave something in the unfinished nursery with a girl and boy name on it and see if Jess went snooping. Because Kevin thought it was silly, he said he would give me $20 if she did. So I went onto some website where you can order custom name wall decals and put in the names Aria Rose and Sebastian Ali. These are names that we like but aren't remotely close to what we chose. This will also be our last pregnancy, so even if Jess did use them, we wouldn't care. I didn't complete the order though. I got to the final page and then printed it out and hid it in a dresser drawer in the nursery. The party goes off, but because we were busy hosting, we never noticed if Jess disappeared for any extended period of time. When I went into the nursery the next morning, nothing was out of place and the order sheet was still in the exact location. So we both just went, welp, and forgot about it. I did, however, notice that Jess never asked us about the names again. Then, Jess gives birth. We went to the hospital to give our congrats, and when we go in and see the baby, I asked what his name was, and man, I cannot properly explain the crap-eating grin that came over Jess's face as she says, Sebastian Ali, and I mean, she was really proud of herself, and honestly, it's the most vindictive I have ever seen her look in the years that I've known her. But instead of reacting how she was expecting, I put on a performance like I had graduated from Juilliard, and I was like, OMG, that's such a great name, he's so cute, look at his little face, oh, I just love him so much. Welcome to the world, Sebastian. Auntie's gonna spoil you rotten. And I mean, I am laying it on thick without an ounce of butter. The range of emotions on Jess's face went from shock to confusion to rage in a span of maybe 17 seconds. Meanwhile, my husband is holding in the laugh of the century. We later say our goodbyes, and he gives me a 20 in the elevator while almost crying laughing. All I could say was, like I thought. This was 2 weeks ago, and we haven't seen them since because we wanted to give them time to settle in with the new baby. I've heard from my mother-in-law that Jess doesn't seem as thrilled about motherhood as she thought she would be considering how long it took them to conceive, but said it might just be baby blues. Obviously, I think she's just disappointed that her petty move didn't have the desired effect on us. I did share this with my sister, and while she laughed initially, she did say it was kind of an a-hole move. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. For those asking my daughter's name, I put it in the comments, but I'll put it here too, as I don't mind sharing now. Her name is Karis, and I stole it too from Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones. I think it's a gorgeous name, and more people should use it. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "That is hilarious, OP. Not the a-hole. Put sister-in-law on an information diet about anything having to do with your pregnancy and kids. She probably isn't done trying to cause drama." I am more concerned about this now. Before her pregnancy, her and brother-in-law lived in another state for years. That's why it was so easy for me to ignore her. They moved back here in May, and it's become harder to dodge her. Then user 2 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. She tricked herself into naming her baby a name she probably doesn't even like." This is what I'm starting to feel a little bad about. The kid deserved a name of his own, not something thrust onto him because his mother wanted to be spiteful. Then OP replied to a now deleted comment and said, "That's what I think now also." Meanwhile, the actual reason we didn't announce names beforehand isn't because we were worried about them being stolen, but because we don't want people's unsolicited opinions. I definitely think if she had learned our daughter's name early, she would have told us it was stupid and tried to talk us out of it. And then finally, user 3 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. This is hilarious. She'll probably get mad all over again when you give birth and realize you aren't using Area Rose for the girl name." Wow, I hadn't even considered this. I'm just going to have to say we changed our minds last minute. Update. Hey y'all, thanks for the responses to my original post. The comments were funnier than I was expecting and kept me and my husband pretty entertained. I tried to respond to as many as I could before they got away from me. I've gotten some messages asking for an update, but nothing major has really happened. Jess didn't break into my house to push me down the steps and steal my kid. I did get some additional info though that I can pass along. Before I get to that, I want to give a little context about my relationship with Jess to explain why I did what I did. To put it plainly, Jess and I have been in a one-sided beef since the day Kevin and I started dating. I give her zero thought if I don't have to, and yet I live rent-free in her mind. Based on snide comments she's made over the years, the reason why is jealousy. Kevin and I dated for only a year before we got engaged. We then married within 6 months of that engagement. We had an actual wedding with a ceremony and reception, went on a honeymoon, bought a house in the burbs, and got pregnant in rapid succession. Both of us have good careers and are financially stable. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, and grandmother-in-law all adore me. There is a churchy reason behind this that I will spare you. Jess and Terrence, however, did not have a similar path. They had been on and off since they were 19 and 20, with Terrence never really wanting to commit. During one of their breaks, Terrence got one of his FWBs pregnant and now has an 11-year-old son. This has always been a sore subject with Jess due to her fertility struggles, fibroids, and when they finally got back together, she pressed him for marriage until he relented and gave her a shut-up ring. They went to the courthouse on a random Tuesday, then had dinner at a Red Lobster afterwards and went back to work the next day. Not trying to be shady, just relaying the facts. They now live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a high cost of living city while working hourly jobs. They aren't minimum wage or anything, but constantly need overtime to make ends meet. This has led to her resenting me over the years. She thinks everything has come easily to me and has let that fester. There was a time a few years ago at a gathering where she got drunk and got into an argument with Terrence. I think her attitude that night stemmed from seeing me with my infant daughter. To hurt him, she blurted out that she married the wrong brother. Everyone was shocked. I wasn't. She just said the quiet part out loud and revealed what I already knew. So I poked her a little and I said, "Really? Which brother? That's kind of gross since we're both minors when you met them." And for context, Kevin and Terrence also have a younger brother, Tim, 28. But boy, did she fly off the handle after that. To this day, she claims to have no memory of that night. Anyway, now I know there is a new reason why she resents me. So, on to the update. Like I said, nothing has really happened since I last posted. I haven't seen or heard from Jess since that day in the hospital. Terrence also hasn't communicated much with Kevin other than sports talk. However, my mother-in-law has been with them almost every day. She came over yesterday to go over some last-minute things for our baby shower that we are having the Saturday after Halloween. I am not due till late January, but with the holidays and twins tending to arrive arrive early, we just wanted to get it out of the way. Anyway, after finalizing some things, I asked my mother-in-law how Terrence and Jess were doing. She sighed, leaned back in the chair and said, "Girl, it's a mess." She goes on a long word vomit that I will have to summarize. Basically, they've been at it since before the baby was born. When they were discussing names, Jess's list only consisted of girls' names. When Terrence asked what if it's a boy, Jess was adamant that it wouldn't be. But if it was, they wouldn't use Terrence Jr. This caused an argument because Terrence's 11-year-old son is not named after him, and it would be petty to not name the second son a junior. Unbeknownst to me, Jess was having severe anxiety over not the name, but the gender of their baby. So much so that she refused to find out early because she was afraid of disappointment, and she wanted to really enjoy her pregnancy believing she was having a girl. She really wanted a girl. I mean, really wanted a girl. This goes back to my mother-in-law, I think. Mother-in-law is the only girl of 4 brothers. She had 3 boys. 2 of her 3 boys, Tim has a 6-year-old, have boys. Then my daughter came along. Mother-in-law actually broke down in tears at our gender reveal. Since the day she was born, mother-in-law has become a little obsessed with her. Not in an unhealthy way. She knows and respects boundaries, but the whole family is aware that my daughter is mother-in-law's favorite person in the world. I think Jess thought that by having a girl, she would get that same attention and affection from mother-in-law, as she has never been Jess's biggest fan. When that didn't happen, something short-circuited in her head. Mother-in-law's words, not mine. Before we arrived at the hospital that day, they were still fighting over a name. So I guess when I showed up, she just blurted it out loud. While I still think it was to hurt me, it seems like it was also because she didn't allow herself to think of anything else because she didn't want a boy. I said in the first post how I noticed her expression. However, I completely failed to notice Terrence's expression. He was pissed. Jess had never mentioned the name to him prior, and he had no clue where it even came from. He also hated it. He refused to sign on, and then they left the hospital without a name. In our state, you only have 7 days from birth to register a name. She eventually told Terrence to pick the name himself and that she didn't care anymore. So he did. He swapped out Sebastian for Jordan, but kept Ali. Yes, after Michael Jordan and Muhammad Ali. According to mother-in-law, since they've been home, Jess has shut down emotionally. She's been doing all the motherly things, but there's a disconnect there. Mother-in-law said she finally broke down to her a few nights ago, and she'll likely never have a daughter due to her age and what it took to get pregnant in the first place. I think that will bring them closer together since mother-in-law never got the daughter she wanted either. And I also felt bad hearing that because regardless of how I feel about her as a person, I do have a heart and would never want to punch down on her if she's in the throes of PPD. Jess still hasn't admitted to snooping, so I haven't admitted to setting her up. A few comments said I should never confess, but I think I will at some point, mainly because I don't care. I am more than willing to burn a bridge while I am standing on it, but now simply isn't the time. So that's it. That's the lackluster update. Jess is invited to my baby shower, so I might be back in a couple of weeks depending on how that shakes out. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Well, damn, that's not where I saw this going. Might not have been as crazy as you say, but definitely quite the revelation. I feel for Jess to a point, but the minute she made that comment about my husband, all gloves would have been off. Your restraint is commendable, and I hope she gets some counseling so that little boy doesn't have to grow up knowing his mother didn't want him. P.S. Absolutely don't listen to the person who said to go out of your way to be nice to her. This site is full of willing doormats, and I'm actually quite sick of it." I am mostly worried about my nephew in all of this, but I really do think mother-in-law will step up and help. I don't know if I can or what that would even look like. We've never been close before this, and likely never will. The best way for me to help is actually to just leave her be. Every mama deserves a village, and had she shown me the slightest bit of kindness in all these years, I would be a part of that. Yet here we are. And then user 2 commented and said, "I actually feel bad for your sister-in-law. I know she has her faults and she is projecting her hate onto you unfairly, but it seems like she just wants to feel wanted, which is sad. I wouldn't admit to it, even though in the last post I said you totally should be petty to her. Her life just seems sad. I bet she didn't see herself with a man who didn't want to be with her, and her feeling so unwanted at this stage in life." My thoughts exactly, because 90% of this dynamic was in place before I arrived. I never took it into consideration. I just judged her based on how she treated me in the last 6 to 7 years. Whether or not that's fair is debatable, but there's almost 20 years of history here that I probably should have considered. Then user 3 said, "There is no reason to ever tell anyone else about the name game. What would be the point? There's enough bad blood between the two of you, and exposing it would not bring anything positive to anyone's life. It would be petty. The temporary high would be beneath you." I think if no one asks me, then I won't tell. But if confronted with it, I'm not going to lie. Then user 4 commented, commented and said,
But how confronted? Only you and your husband know about the setting. Who is to confront you about it?
Jess, that's who. If she ever asks me about the names and why I didn't use them, I'll tell her. But for her to do that, she would have to first admit to her part, so it's unlikely. Then user 4 said,
That was not lackluster, OP. The villain origin story for Jess was actually quite relevant, and her ongoing jealousy towards your good fortune is rather sad. So for her to initiate, as you said, a one-sided beef is beyond wild. Stealing a baby name to make you angry? Nice try, honey. I don't blame you for telling her about the setup. She's trifling. Still not the a-hole.
I have read my fair share of Reddit stories, and they always go off the rails, so I thought that this would be boring in comparison. And then finally, user 5 commented and said,
To me, it sounds odd that mother-in-law likes her female grandchildren more than male ones. Who knows who the golden child would be? Sounds quite immature.
It was a little odd to me at first, simply because my daughter isn't the first grandchild or granddaughter on my side, so I didn't understand mother-in-law's big fuss. But I understand it a bit more now. My husband and Terrence are only 3 years apart. However, my husband and Tim are 7 years apart. Tim was my in-laws' last Hail Mary at having a girl, and it didn't work out. She probably held on to that disappointment longer than she should have. Okay, so I'm gonna mention the first half of the story and then the second half of the story. And the first half is something that I've observed just over the course of doing all of these for pretty much a year now. When the name Jess shows up, something crazy is going to happen around that person. It might be a good crazy, it might be a bad crazy, but like, Jess is never a side character. She is one of the main characters in these wild-ass stories. I don't know what it is, but that name just seems to attract people. Also, Frank. If there's a Frank, Franks are always good at what they do. They are a force of nature, like good, solid nature. Franks get stuff done. I've said that before. But as for the second half, to put it in slightly more comedic tones, we really did get the villain origin story for Jess, and I did feel really bad for her in the second half, but also at the same time, she was rude to OP. We understand why, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to understand, but ultimately, you know, your actions are your actions, and she was rude to OP and had this one-sided beef, and went snooping in her home, by the way, and then she just feels unwanted, wanted to have a daughter, and wanted to be accepted by the in-law, and I don't believe OP mentioned where Jess's parents are in all of this. They've moved, so maybe they just moved away from her family. But, it's like in the TV show where you learn the villain origin story, and you're like, oh, I feel bad for the bad guy now, oh. But, again, I'm not gonna dunk on Jess or anything, but, I mean, I don't know. We got the information, and there might be an update down the line. Anyway, next story. Story number 9. My friends didn't invite me to their wedding, then made me the bad guy. A friend of mine, Greg 28M, in my circle of friends met Shannon, 28, about 5 years ago, and they immediately hit it off. Everybody instantly fell in love with Shannon because she's friendly and really fun to hang out with. They were everybody's favorite couple and really made our hangouts much more fun. We all knew they were perfect for each other, and they both made our crew that much better. The engagement was expected, but much welcome news. Our friends' circle was buzzing about the inevitable wedding. Then, the invitations went out. You know those save the date magnets that people send out? Well, it really sucked seeing them on everybody else's fridge when I visited friends knowing I didn't get one and wasn't invited. Feeling left out really sucks. But it gets worse. I completely understand how stressful wedding planning is, and I believe nobody should feel that they have to invite people they don't want to their wedding. It's their day and their ceremony, and they shouldn't have to have people there that they don't want there. I didn't cause a fuss or express to anyone that I was hurt, that I felt excluded from the wedding, and by extension, excluded from the group. I didn't want to be looked on in an even worse way that I feel I was already apparently being looked at. But one friend actually stood up for me. When their wedding came up in conversation and people talked about booking flights and rooms, destination wedding in New York City, eventually I was asked if I booked yet. I said, me and my girlfriend weren't invited. Nobody could believe it, but I insisted that I wasn't upset because I know how the situations like this can go. I didn't want to cause trouble because then the happy couple might resent me. Then I'd be the bad guy. I heard through other friends that my friend Tracy thought it was really messed up that I wasn't invited. She and I never spoke of how I wasn't invited to the wedding, but she really felt a certain way about it. So, a month before the destination wedding, I got a text message from Greg basically saying sorry for forgetting to send an invite, but that they would love to have us come to the wedding. It was way too late at that point for me, though. I couldn't get away from my job, and I didn't have a chance to put money aside for a year for an expensive NYC destination wedding like everyone else did. I didn't even get a save the date. Every flight and hotel was unaffordable for me. I texted him back that I couldn't make it. The wedding came and went, and I felt bad about everything. I saw the Facebook pictures of my friends all having the time of their lives. It looked like a great wedding. There's even a picture of just the group of friends labeled the crew. I don't think I've ever felt so left out. Honestly, it really made me feel worthless and unwanted. So naturally, the typical thoughts surfaced. They don't like you. They think you're annoying. They think you're an a-hole. If you can't identify the schmuck in a group of friends, that means you're it. They think you try way too hard to be nice and think you're a phony. Then, as if it couldn't get any worse, Shannon messaged me on Facebook asking why I didn't RSVP and said they missed me at the wedding. RSVP? RSVP? Doesn't one have to be involved in order to RSVP? Everybody got a year to prepare between getting save the dates and actual wedding invitations. I got a text message a month before the wedding. Just as I feared, I'm being made out to be the bad guy, and I even made a point to keep my feelings to myself and play it cool. But as usual, I didn't say this to her because I knew how I would end up looking. I actually apologized for, I don't even know, but I made a point to mention how I spoke with Greg about it. I also made sure to compliment the wedding pictures and said it looked fun. I did everything I could in that conversation to make it easier on her. And of course, now I feel like a total schmuck. That was this past summer, and I haven't seen them since. I feel like that's it for me in the group now. I see some of the friends in our group every now and then, but everything feels different now. None of them even responded to my birthday party Facebook invite this month. I feel like things are being said behind the scenes, and I feel completely out of the loop. It felt like a passive-aggressive message that maybe Greg and Shannon never actually liked me. My fiance gets along great with Shannon, and she's just confused. Seeing her confusion just makes my heart break even more because she's a sweetheart who's never offended anybody in her life, and I wish I could break it to her that I'm just the guy in the group that Greg and Shannon think sucks, but I don't know how, and I feel like a complete loser who deserves this. I will always appreciate Tracy sticking up for me. She may never know about how awesome it feels hearing about how she told everyone it was messed up that I was left out. I haven't even spoken to her about how the whole thing made me feel, or anybody for that matter. Reddit, you were the first to hear about it, but because I didn't want to appear like I am making a stink and become even more disliked. This whole thing just effing sucks. I feel like I don't have friends anymore, and to make it worse, soon I'll have a wedding of my own, and I'm afraid I won't have any friends there, except for Tracy, of course. How am I supposed to handle who I invite so it doesn't seem like I'm leaving people out for petty revenge? How the hell do I navigate a toxic situation like that I had no hand in creating? I still feel like I'm in the dark or could be overreacting. What the hell? Then in the comments section, one user said,
Dude, you clearly tell them you were not respected like the others. Cut them out. This is about self-respect. Find new friends, don't turn back.
Thanks for reading and responding. Yeah, I've been thinking, I guess I can have my younger brother be the best man and not just have groomsmen, considering the circumstances, but it's just effed up how I did everything I could to avoid looking like the bad guy, yet here we are. I'm the bad guy regardless of anything I did.
Then user 2 said, That totally sucks. I would be hurt too. Do you think maybe Greg was in charge of sending invites to his friends and forgot? Or it got lost in the mail? I had an invite get returned to me 1 month after I sent it, but thankfully I'd sent a save the date and sent my invite super early, so it ended up being fine. But if I hadn't, one of my cousins might have incorrectly thought that she was excluded. It sounds like Shannon, at least, thought you were sent an invite if she was upset you didn't RSVP. You actually did RSVP by texting Greg, by the way, but it sounds like she thought you'd been sent an RSVP response card.
Yeah, it could be just a simple misunderstanding, but word seemed to get around early that I didn't get a save the date, and even later didn't get an invite either. Tracy especially seemed to make sure everybody was aware that she wasn't happy about my exclusion. The other friends I spoke to didn't even suggest that it could have been a mistake, almost like they knew something that I didn't, but I didn't feel comfortable saying it. Only one person ever spoke up on my behalf. Small update. So, I half took everyone's advice and brought it up with Tracy, and she just confirmed that Shannon was full of crap when she asked me why she didn't get my RSVP and just wanted to absolve herself of guilt. I'm not sure if they forgot or if I just wasn't invited yet, but Tracy said we'd talk about it more tonight when she gets out of work. Final update. So, I spoke about it in depth with Tracy, and it turns out Greg's best man, someone who was never in the gang but grew up with Greg, always hated me, and Greg thinks I'm annoying. Shannon later felt bad that they chose not to invite me and pressured him to invite me over text, knowing I wouldn't be able to make it. Also, it wasn't only Tracy who thought it was wrong that I didn't get an invite, and the chatter is what made Shannon ask me why I didn't RSVP, to make it seem like my invite was lost in the mail. It feels better knowing this because, like I said, they don't have to have
have people they don't want at their wedding. But knowing Greg doesn't like me effing hurts because I always thought we were friends. Turns out he's the phony. Unfortunately, everybody else, except for Tracy and a few others, like Greg more than me, so they kind of felt like they had to choose a side after Tracy, and a few of hers, it turns out, brought up why I didn't get invited. Lots of people feeling guilty about this, apparently, and they still felt like they had to choose a side for whatever reason. Probably because most of them went to high school with Greg. Oh well, that's life. Thanks for the advice about being more assertive. Those of you polite about it were very helpful. Thanks. Then one user commented and said,
Yeah, you don't need those two-faced a-holes in your life. Congratulations on finding out before they borrowed money from you. When they get divorced, you can reach out to Greg and tell him that he deserves it.
It's funny you bring up borrowing money because they're the type who always want to split the check when they order the most expensive crap and always say,
I'll get you back, and I don't trust Venmo, I'll just cash you when I get to the ATM.
and then they don't. On the plus side, I don't have to pay for part of their steak and lobster dinners anymore.
Then OP elaborated on if he will invite Greg, Shannon, and the best man to his wedding and said,
Nah, I don't think it would be right to force anybody to choose sides because that feels inappropriate to do to friends. I think everybody who stood up for me gets an invite. Greg can have his best man and be the cynical bastards they are together. Honestly, nobody really likes the best man all that much because he's always acted like an obnoxious a-hole when he's been around us. They can have each other.
Then OP responded to the idea of talking to Greg directly and said,
Actually got confirmation and an apology from someone else. Not everybody was cool with it, but she's the only one who really has a spine and spoke up for me. Turns out they effed up all kinds of drama between people in the group. Some people wanted to keep me out of the loop so I wouldn't feel insulted. I kinda get it, but it just makes me appreciate Tracy even more.
Then user 2 commented and said,
In this situation, you aren't the bad guy from my perspective. And to be honest, a destination wedding is a dick move on your friend's part. The sheer inconvenience of one is like dick move supreme, especially the fact that they chose New York City. The hell? Plus, some people turn into huge a-holes after marriage, and statistically speaking, your married male friend is going to be spending much more time with his wife rather than his friends for now. In some ways, marriage is like high school. You go to it with your friends for a little while, then you start to drift away from another by barely communicating.
Shannon is from up there, and she wanted to be closer to her family. And yeah, turns out they didn't want me there and felt pressured once some of my friends realized. I guess it was easier to make the decision when it was just the two of them, and they lost confidence in the choice when people found out.
And then finally user 3 said,
I feel it's best to let the consequences of this affect them and just move on, OP.
Yeah, hopefully they learn from this and aren't such a-holes in the future. I don't see Greg ever changing from the cynical and negative guy he is, but you never know.
So we've gotten a few of these wedding stories where typically OP, doesn't get the wedding invite, and it's like, oh, I thought we were friends, and just for whatever reason didn't get it. And I think almost every time it was not a case of, oh, it got lost in the mail or we forgot. It was they intentionally didn't want OP there. And, then a whole bunch of other stuff happens. So when I have my wedding, I am going to physically go to everyone's house and give them the invitation. Maybe I'll send a mariachi band and be like, you're invited with, like guitar or something like that. But you know what? So that there's no room for miscommunication and error. And if I don't get the wedding invitation to someone's wedding, or they don't follow up with me, or get a save the date, then I'll be like, I'm just not invited. I'm going to safely assume I'm not invited. And then I politely hope their marriage fails. Anyway, next story.
Story number 10. My boyfriend stole my necklace and gifted it to his sister. Serious advice needed because I am lost. I have been with my boyfriend, I'll call him Adam, for almost a year now. I met him through my master's degree in the UK. When I was a sophomore in college, I had a long-term boyfriend, who I will call Kyle, who took his own life. We were together for 3 years, and I would never wish the pain of losing someone like that on my worst enemy. When we started college, Kyle gifted me a locket with the word most engraved on the back of it. It was our thing. It meant he loved me the most. Sappy, but it was ours. Since his passing, this has been my most valuable possession, and I do not go anywhere without it. It is my last piece of Kyle. After finishing my degree, struggling the entire time, I decided that I needed to get out of the town where everything happened and decided to study my master's degree in the UK, which is where I met Adam. He is the first person I have allowed myself to love since losing Kyle, and I have really loved our relationship up until this. If it is true, I will never be able to forgive him. Adam has always been insecure of Kyle, asking hypothetical questions like if Kyle was still alive, would I be with him, and what I prefer about him over Kyle, etc., etc. I usually dodge the questions and never give him an answer, as I don't condone these type of questions and I don't want to feed into it. We have also had to have several conversations regarding Adam talking badly about Kyle. He also dislikes if I post about Kyle on his birthday or death anniversary or have had hard days. He sees this as I don't love him and I'm still hung up on Kyle. No matter how many years that pass and how much I love Adam, Kyle was my first, and his life was cut short. He was also my best friend, and I will mourn his life forever, even if I have moved on romantically. He knows how much this necklace from Kyle means to me and how devastated I've been the last 2 weeks frantically searching for it in our apartment. I took a shower one day and set the necklace in the same place I always do. When I came out of the shower, it was gone, and Adam swears he has no idea where it is, and it must have fallen somewhere and got lost. I have been beside myself and have spent nights in tears over losing this. Adam has a sister who we will call Jane, and Jane recently celebrated her 21st birthday. I am on her Snapchat private story where she posted the beautiful locket that her big brother got her for her special day, and it was the same locket. I know it because it has the same engraving on the back. I don't know how Adam explained that one, but he must have somehow. Me and Jane are not particularly close, and this isn't something I feel I can just confront her about casually. I also feel silly bringing it up to Adam in case it isn't the same locket and I am just going insane and looking for excuses because I was careless and lost it. I don't see where else Adam would have gotten this locket, as it was made for me by a small business back in the United States. She was local to Kyle and I, and her work has always been my favorite. So, any advice on how to ask Adam about this? I know if I do, he will deny it either way, and this locket means the world to me. I need it back. Thanks. Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on reaching out to Adam's sister and explaining the locket situation and said, I don't intend to stay with my boyfriend. I just need to figure out a way to make sure I get the necklace back. Then OP elaborated on needing to end the relationship and moving her things out and said, the relationship will definitely be done. It is just tricky since we share an apartment. His name is on the lease as he is from the UK and I am an American. I'm working out the best way around it so I don't become homeless and trying to scrap together enough for a trip home for a while. Then one user commented and said,
OP, can I ask, what are your thoughts on his red flag behaviors being jealous of a person who died prematurely? It seems like it didn't occur to you that those are massive red flags before the necklace theft.
I have noticed that there are red flags. I guess I just excused them as Adam is the first person I have found myself having those feelings for again. Also, we share an apartment. His name is on the lease because he is from the UK and I'm from the States. I'm also a student trying to scrape together enough money to get back home for a while. I know it's a stupid reason to stay in a disrespectful relationship, but this is a foreign country and I'm mostly alone here. And then user 2 commented and said,
if he denies it, tell him to produce the receipt or bank statement from the purchase. If he claims that he paid cash, ask him what jewelry store or website he bought it from. Reach out to them to see if they ever sold something like that. Then, when he can't prove he bought it, send photos of yourself wearing the locket to his sister and let her know that Adam stole it from you. If she knows about your late boyfriend, you can let her know it's the last piece you have of him and you need it back. Hopefully, she is a good person and returns it. He's competing with your late partner. Once you get your locket back, leave.
Update. Thanks everyone for all the advice. It's been almost 3 weeks since I posted, and I didn't plan to update, but I've seen a few comments asking for one. A day or two after the initial post, I confronted Adam about the locket. He claims he did not know what I was talking about, and he couldn't believe I could be as so cold as to accuse him of this. When I asked for the receipts or any proof that the locket was not the same as mine, he couldn't produce any and got angry and stormed out of the apartment. Well, he came back that night, tried to gaslight me into believing I was the one who created a problem out of nothing, and even that the necklace he got his sister had no engraving whatsoever. Unluckily for him, I had contacted his mom while he was away, and I stated that I had misplaced my locket and was wondering if it had accidentally been taken home by Adam when he was visiting. She got back to me pretty quickly saying that she had found my necklace on her daughter Jane's present pile stacked away in a corner. She said that she would return the necklace to me as soon as possible and that herself or Jane must have mistaken it for one of her presents and put it back in the pile. She promised me that she would keep a hold of it in her room until she got the chance to return it. Immediately after I had confirmation that Adam's mom had the locket, I booked the cheapest flight home I could find and asked his mom for a lift to the airport. That way she could return the necklace. She agreed, and after that, I sat planning exactly how I would tell Adam that we were breaking up. I didn't even need him to admit to stealing the necklace. The The fact that I had enough doubt in my mind that I knew he had taken it was enough for me to know that this relationship was going nowhere. I just wanted my necklace back. I stayed with Adam until my flight, which was about a week ago. I left him and his mom drive me to the airport. I left a note breaking up with them, telling him that my friends would be by to pick up my stuff and move it between their flats. I took a leave of absence from university until I work out where I'm going to stay when I get back to the UK, and have contacted my landlord about taking my name off the lease. When Adam's mom gave me back my necklace, his face was priceless. He looked like a deer in the headlights. He was so angry, but he couldn't show it in front of his mom. His sister Jane hasn't once questioned the missing necklace, by the way, and it's been around 2 weeks now. I doubt she will ever notice, as she is a rather spoiled person. But I am glad to update that I am safe. I am back home with my necklace from Kyle, and I am just home from visiting with his grave, telling him this entire story and laughing about it. It reminded me that I should update, probably hold higher standards in men for myself. Thank you for your love and your support. And then finally, in the comments section, one user said,
Wow, what a roller coaster. It sounds like you handled this situation with some serious finesse, confronting him, getting the necklace back, and breaking free, all while keeping your dignity intact? That's impressive. I can just picture Adam's face when his mom handed back your necklace. Talk about a plot twist. It's like he thought he was playing chess, but you were playing 4D checkers, OP. I'm so glad you're back home, and it's awesome that you took the time to visit Kyle's grave and share a laugh about it. Here's to higher standards and better men in your future.
Story number 11. Am I the a-hole for leaving my partner and refusing to be involved in any way, shape, or form after they stopped taking the pill and pierced our condoms to have a child? My partner has been the pill throughout our entire relationship, and we've been in a bit of a battle these past few weeks over having children. I categorically said that I don't want them and started using condoms for double protection. This morning, she told me that she's pregnant, and I asked how this could happen when we'd been so careful. She admitted to coming off the pill and piercing through the condoms that we have stored. I've said that I don't want this and that I'm not up for marrying into a relationship based on lies. She says she's keeping it and has already told her friends, as according to her, she'd done the test 8 weeks ago and was keeping it quiet in the hopes that I would change my mind. I have no idea what to do here. Hell, I live in England and I'm 29 years old. Update. Firstly, thanks so much for all of your comments. I didn't expect this to blow up quite so much as it did. Secondly, I want to get a few things straight as people seem to be struggling with timelines. A. My partner and I were due to get married in a few short weeks. We have had many long and involved conversations during our relationship about us both wanting to remain a child-free family over the years that we have been together. Around 2 to 3 months ago, they started to appear to change their mind, which I feel insecure and happy about, as it is not something that I want from life, which is why I'd booked a vasectomy through NHS. I cannot afford to go private as money is very tight right now. Again, another reason I do not want children. B. She admitted to tampering with condoms and said that she'd come off the pill several weeks ago. At that point, prior to her saying that kids might be an option for her, we were still having sex, and I was under the impression that we were protected as she was on the pill. I have made no secret about how I do not want kids, and she is fully aware of my reasons behind that, which I do not have to share with strangers on the internet. And C. She has shown me a test and it confirms that she is pregnant. I've asked that she get an abortion, but she has refused, and I feel that the trust has completely gone from our relationship. We are now in the process of canceling the engagement, which she isn't happy with at all, and has said that I'm ruining her life. Now, for the people telling me to go to therapy, man up, or that I'm lying, it's great that you disagree with me, but I would never tell you to attend therapy if your worldview differed than mine. That I should be at fault after my partner has lied to me, apparently for months, and that I'm a liar. Also, here's a few other things for you. 1. No, I do not like kids, and I don't like entitled parents. I see it the same as disliking dogs, cats, or birds. That is my opinion, not for everyone, and not all people have to tolerate your madness. My disinterest and lack of care towards them is one of the many reasons why it would be idiotic for me to be a father. 2. Those calling bullcrap on the 21+ wedding venue thing are just wrong. It's a stipulation of the venue we chose, nothing more and nothing less. 3. The plane thing happened several years ago. The smoking area fiasco occurred over a year ago. Colleagues bringing their newborns into work is a continued pain and just really gets my goat. Just like some people don't like Susan to eat her tuna mayo baguette. It shows a complete and utter lack of etiquette and thought by the parents who are coming out in their droves to tell me how wrong I am about their decision. Anyway, I will provide updates as and when I get through all of the comments. Be kind, people. Update number 2. I spoke to a lawyer earlier today who has advised me that as we are not married, that I won't automatically be added to the birth certificate. My ex-partner can still claim that I'm the biological father, but without my consent to a DNA test, it is unlikely to be proven, unless it is ordered by the court. But as I've been coerced coerced into this by my lawyer, he thinks that my ex-partner and family will back down, as I have evidence. The lawyer advised that I don't waive my parental rights yet, as it would indicate that I still believe that the fetus could be mine. So I just have to bide my time and leave the country till this all blows over. The lawyer also suggested that I go self-employed, but don't divulge the specifics. My ex-partner has admitted to coming off of birth control and piercing the condoms, which she said she had done around 3 months ago, as she knew I was due a vasectomy early next week and thought I would change my mind. She has refused to have an abortion, which is her right, and I've refused any involvement. Has anyone ever been through this before and managed not to pay out? I think I've got a pretty good case. Update number 3. My ex-partner is going to keep the baby. She wants me to be involved in her life and says she doesn't want to lose me over something like this. A life-changing unwanted event? Sure. Anyway, I have said that I will be having nothing to do with this mistake, and that all responsibility now lies with her and her family. She has also been blocked from using any form of mobile communication with me, and I've now been sent 3 letters by her to my parents' house. The last letter included a scan of the embryo and a note requesting that I submit a DNA sample. The scan has confirmed that she is 13 to 14 weeks pregnant, which means that she kept this hidden for a good chunk of time. She has said that she will not have an abortion, and this is what she always wanted, and that she will be taking me to court if I don't offer to help. The more that time goes on, the more she makes this an awful situation, and the more I hate her. I refused the DNA test and sent her screenshots, on my lawyer's advice, of the conversation where she admitted to coming off of the pill and piercing condoms in an attempt to get pregnant. She has now gone quiet until this morning. She is pursuing legal action against me and my family, and is looking for a private arrangement of child support. The amount she wants for this bag of cells is triple the recommended amount via the government, and is one of the reasons she is trying to get me to admit that it's my DNA in that embryo so that she can get to keep me. I have just lost my job. I have no savings. This is going to ruin me, my life, and the only way out that I can think of is to just run off a cliff and hope for the best. I hate this. Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on having a conversation with his partner about children and said, "We did have that conversation 8 years ago. She changed the rules. She and I agreed on no kids 8 years ago. She then lied about birth control and put holes in the condoms we used to have sex with. How the F is that me causing a problem? You sound like a delightful chap. She was my partner, now she isn't. Also, dude, regardless of where we are in our relationship, there's always respect for the women, not girls that I am with. I would not call my partner my girlfriend because I don't like the term. As I mentioned in my post, we had the conversation 8 years ago, and as I've mentioned in other posts asking for advice, we've always spoken about being a child-free couple. My point here is this, that if you read with your peepers and focus on the words, it's that she made the decision to go off of birth control without telling me at some point. I don't know when. After disagreeing on children ahead of us getting married, I started to use condoms when we had sex under the impression that this would be double protection, when it was actually no protection at all. So, in answer to your final quip, it's not gone very well, but I don't need someone like you to say this sort of mad crap. And then finally, OP elaborated on his vasectomy and needing a legal reason to get one and said, I visited my GP for a referral 3 times, 24, 26, and 29. The first 2 times I was denied due to my age and the idea that I might change my mind. Average waiting time, they said, can be between 6 to 9 months, but I don't know if that's a deterrent for men, as I was scheduled in my procedure 3 months after my approval. I am still going ahead with it. Update number 4. My ex's parents have now gotten involved and have lumbered me with a court-ordered DNA test or the option to pay child support and have no involvement. I have dug my heels in and said that everything she has done will constitute involvement from the police, and I am trying to avoid legal battles as I have no money or means to support myself right now, let alone a child I never wanted. My parents are now asking me to reconsider my position, and I want to scream every time they bring it up as if they're trying to find a positive, and have said it might be the best thing to ever happen to me, and it makes me physically sick every time I think about my life being ruined over someone else's deception. I cannot sleep, I cannot focus, and I am so scared. So this story is interesting and also worded as a mess sometimes. I'm just going to be honest with you, but I feel like the general consensus here is clear that the ex-girlfriend, or if they're about to be married, fiance, partner, whatever, he, she, they, poked holes, and she is crazy. And then OP was talking about fleeing the country for a little while until this blows over, which is a line the bad guy says in a movie, let's be honest. But I mean, OP's not the bad guy here, but I mean, I feel for the guy. And he mentioned he lost his job. I don't know if it's because of this, but like, he said he has evidence that she admitted to poking holes and going off the pill. So, I mean, I don't know what the legal standing here is. He's obviously trying
trying to avoid court. But I mean, I don't know. This story was a coherent mess. I'm gonna say it like that. But again, the overarching thing is, I don't know. I feel bad for the guy. We read updates all the time, so hopefully we can get another update down the line. But I mean, it seems like he has good evidence to stand on, like her literally admitting it. So I'm hoping that in the court of law, it favors him. But anyway, next story. Story number 12. My 19F family, 50M, 50F, and 21M sold my rock collection when I went to college. What am I supposed to do? I am a college freshman, and I'm currently visiting my mom over break. When I got there, I saw a crystal that was in my old room on display, and I asked about it. My mom then told me that the rest was gone after the yard sale. For context, my parents were moving the same time I was getting ready for college, so the house was in chaos basically. I had a rock collection that I had been growing for around 10 years and had cost me over $1,000. Some were gifts from old friends or family, some I had found in special destinations of significance, and all of them were very important to me. Since the collection took up 2 cabinets, I knew I couldn't take it to my dorm room and decided to pack them up. My brother also likes rocks, so I thought he would be a good fit to look after them while I couldn't, or at least until I decorated my room when my parents bought a house. Apparently, my brother picked through the boxes and told my mother to sell everything he didn't want to keep. My aunt and mother took a few each that they liked, but hundreds of rocks were either donated or sold, with none of the profit going to me and without my knowledge, by the way. When I learned about this, I broke down into tears. I know they're just rocks, but they brought me a lot of happiness, and I can't believe they're just gone. Writing this out is making me cry again. My mother feels really sorry, and I don't blame anyone for this, but I'm crushed. How do I deal with this loss and not take it out on my family? I'm not mad at anyone, I just wish I had explained better or something, and I don't want my family to think I'm angry with them. Then in the comments section, one user said,
OP, why aren't you angry with them? This is horrible, rude, awful behavior from your family. Why do you think it is your fault that they acted like this? I hope at least that your mother, aunt, and brother have given back the parts of your collection that they decided to keep and given you some of the money they got for selling the rest. This is absolutely unhinged behavior.
Then user 2 said,
They stole from you and then sold the stolen goods. Have they given you the proceeds of the sale? I would say your opinion of them as not bad people is wildly incorrect. Only bad people steal from their child.
My parents thought I was giving them away, so they weren't trying to steal from me. It doesn't really change how hurt I am, though, but it makes me feel bad to have them for it. And I'm starting to feel like I'm underreacting, but I'm really conflicted since they provide me everything, which I know doesn't justify anything, but still. Then user 3 said,
OP, it's okay to be mad and sad. Have you had a conversation with your brother to let him know that you meant for him to look after them / enjoy them, and that they were not his to give away? Let him know that you were sorry you weren't more clear that that was the case, but that you're upset about it, and it's going to take some time for you to get over it. Your parents, too. Tell them I know that in the scheme of things, they're rocks, and I had a lot of memories in my collection, and I'm just going to be a little sad and a little mad that they're gone. I know it's not anyone's fault, and I'm not blaming anyone. I just have a lot of feelings about not having them anymore, and it's going to be a bit before I'm okay with it. Or something like that. When it's not so raw, maybe see if your family would be willing to go with you to go get a few new rocks that are tied to new memories, or let your friends know that you're rebuilding your collection slowly so that you can keep them with you.
Thank you so much for your reply and for understanding. They really aren't evil people, and you're correct that it's just a misunderstanding. Some parts are my fault, and some parts are theirs. I'm going to use your response when I speak to them. I struggle with confrontation, so if I don't have a plan, I probably won't be clear. And then finally, user 4 said,
You should blame them, OP. Don't they have phones and FaceTime? Nobody called you to ask you anything? Your family is incredibly inconsiderate, and I'm sorry your collection was destroyed.
This is honestly the part that hurts me the most. It would have taken like 2 minutes to call me, and my parents have taken me to go buy rocks countless times, so I don't understand why they didn't think to second check with me. Edit. My family did not mean to steal. They just assumed I was giving them away. It wasn't necessarily malicious, but it was definitely wrong. Also, I think the reason I'm struggling to be mad is because me and my mom have a really good relationship. She's the person I can always rely on, and I'm really hoping the situation is the misunderstanding that I see it as. Thank you all for your replies, and I haven't had anyone to talk to about it all day since my friends are all busy and the only other people around are my family. Edit number 2. My parents are well off, by the way, so I don't think they sold them for the money. Any money made was probably just put into household funds, and I doubt they made $1,000 off the items. That's just how much I've estimated I've spent. I would feel very guilty to ask them for that much, especially since they are paying for my college.
so I'm thinking about maybe asking them to buy something of equivalent value. I've never had to bargain with my parents, so I'm not sure how this will go down. I'm going to talk to them tonight since my dad is here now, and I'm going to take the advice of writing something out to read to them. All the people saying I'm a pushover are 100% correct, by the way, but I'm going to try not to be when I talk to them. Edit number 3. This is probably going to be my final edit. I just spoke with my parents and I used kind of a long speech that included specific memories I had connected to the rocks, and I asked to be compensated financially for the loss. I was crying the whole time, so I'm not sure how much of it they understood. Surprisingly, they're completely willing to pay me back for it, and my parents were both completely sorry and admitted it was their fault. They told me that they were surprised that I did not want the rocks, but that at the same time I was giving away other sentimental things like stuffed animals that they thought I would have kept. Because of this, they didn't think to call me to confirm, since the times they had with other things, I had agreed. They said they're going to get everything back for my aunt and brother too. My mom has already rounded up what she took, and they want to take me rock shopping for the rest of the weekend that I have together with them. This has been such a chaotic day for me, and I never expected so many people to reach out. For those suggesting it, I am looking into therapy. I think that my issues with confrontation and social pressure in general warrant some professional help. My dad actually notes that he was proud of me for bringing it up to them in the way I did. I'm going to be a combination of mad and sad for a while, but now it isn't all stuck inside of me. Thank you to everyone for pushing me to talk to them up front. I probably wouldn't have done it without the help. So I haven't promoted it in maybe a couple of videos, but communication is always solid, and I think OP put it quite eloquently there at the end, that she's going to be mad and sad for a while, but now it isn't all stuck inside of her, because we used some communications, and she was valid in her feelings, and I definitely did get pushover doormat vibes from her a bit, and I was like, this woman's definitely scared of confrontation, or confrontation averse, so when she admitted it, I wasn't surprised. I was just getting those particular vibes. I mean, the parents don't sound like terrible people. They just did they made the wrong choice. And like OP mentioned, from their perspective, she was giving away everything else. So, it was safe for them to assume the rocks, but probably the best decision would have been to double check anyway. But I can understand. I'm not mad at anybody in this story because, they're not my rocks. But if someone got rid of my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, we are fighting, okay? I will throw hands. Okay, I'm enjoying this video. Are you guys having fun? I am too. Anyway, next story. Story number 13. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend he shouldn't take his girl best friend for couples costumes for Halloween? I don't know, and I think I may be wrong here. My boyfriend 26M and I 23F have been together for 8 months. He is very kind to me and has never raised his voice or lost his temper with me. I was introduced to his friends very early in our relationship, and I get along with them just fine. He and his friends have been friends since nursery days, and they are all very nice to me. He has another friend, Vivian, fake name, who along with his other 2 friends plan for Halloween every year months in advance. I've never doubted any foul play about them, and I have never wanted to be the jealous new girlfriend who ruins friendships. The problem is that my boyfriend works in a firm where they apparently throw Halloween parties. He goes with one of his friends every year, and this year was Vivian's turn to go with him because last year he went with his friend Tom. Plus, he and Viv have a thing about scary costumes and horror, and they share the same love for Halloween. The thing is, I love Halloween too. My boyfriend knows that, and we share that common interest too. Granted, I can't just claim a common interest, but he didn't even ask me once if I wanted to go with him, since he and Viv started planning around 2 months ago. We were dating back then, and he never mentioned it to me. It's just that I thought he could have at least asked me. He mentioned to me 2 days ago that he and Viv had their couple's Halloween costumes ready, and if I wanted to see them. I did not feel as positive about it as I should have, and I guess it showed on my face because he asked what was wrong, and I asked him why he never even asked me to go with him once. He didn't get mad, but said that he won't change his rituals with his friends for his relationship. He told me I knew about it early on, as he told me before. I felt hurt, and I told him that's a hurtful thing to say, and he didn't respond, and he's been giving me the silent treatment. I have never expected him to dump plans with his friends for me ever. I don't mind when he does escape rooms with Vivian, or always has hiking plans with Tom and the others. The only reason I thought he could have asked me is because I love Halloween too, and I thought it was a common interest. But now, I feel I may have stepped over the line, and I feel really awful. Am I the a-hole? Then in the comments section, one user said,
It seems like everyone here is on the side of OP, but I think it depends on whether these plans were made before or after meeting you, which I think everyone is missing the point. If a person makes an agreement with someone, they should keep that agreement, and the one that came after should respect it. I would also tell him that things will change for next year, so don't make any plans without you.
Thank you for your comment. My boyfriend made those plans 2 months ago. We were together then. Update. Well, he apologized and we broke up. I didn't want to, certainly not because he could have asked me to Halloween, but his response was he realized he was not someone who could give me the attention and care I deserved, and Vivian deserved better. I asked him if there was something between him and Viv, and get this, he is in love with her. Some people who DM'd me were right. Apparently, Vivian doesn't know, and while I was crying and felt like I was going to have a panic attack, he was explaining their long history and how he was too much of a coward to tell her. Well, I guess that makes two of us because I was too much of a coward to ask if he even actually liked me. I'm a wreck. I'm too sick to leave this week, and luckily my professors were understanding. I feel like it's my fault, though. I didn't even want him to not go with Vivian. All I did was ask why he did not think of taking me once, now that we were dating for almost a year. I know it wasn't my fault, and it was for the best, but I'm constantly blaming myself for opening my mouth. My friends are telling me to go to a therapist, but with my grad school work and the mess of a person I am, I don't know what I'll do. I want to yell at him for wasting my time and hurting my feelings, even though he cried and apologized and kept on saying I deserved better. I know I do. I feel like Vivian won, even though she doesn't know, and I have no right to be angry at her because it is all my ex. I don't think I will update after this. Maybe if something big happens.
So, this story was a short but compact mess. It was just going in a straight line, and then it took a 90-degree turn, and then we went to messy street. And then here we are, and it ended in a train wreck, plane crash explosion. I feel bad for OP. You know, I actually did not pick up on the he was in love with Vivian thing just because he was doing this every year with friends. So I didn't actually pick up on that. So when that happened, I was like, damn, oh, freak. I do definitely feel like OP could benefit from therapy after all of this because, you know, she has so many complex feelings and emotions that she mentioned just in that last paragraph of hers. You know, she's angry at her ex, but she understands. She wants to yell at him. She's angry at Vivian, but it's not Vivian's fault. It is her ex's fault, but he apologized. You know, it's complex emotions. And she's 23 years old and, you know, the frontal lobe isn't done developing, and that doesn't negate anything she went through. But, you know, therapy might do her well because, oh my goodness, what a mess for this poor woman. Anyway, next story.
Story number 14. My 36F husband, 52M, asked me to flash some road workers. I did, and then he got mad at me and pushed me out of the car next to them. How do we move on from this? We've been together for 10 years and married for 6. The last 2 or 3 years, he started to show less and less interest in me. He does subscribe to a couple of OnlyFans accounts, which I'm not bothered about as it's no different to adult content. So I know he still has sexual urges. I've tried talking to him a couple of times about this and told him I'm getting bored and frustrated, and he knows I'm willing to try anything sexual, so if there's anything he wants to do to get him motivated, I will try it, but he just says duly noted and carries on with his day, which is frustrating. Then a few nights ago, we had friends around for tea, and we got onto the subject of commutes and road work, with them saying how their commute has more than doubled due to construction. Then Carol, the wife of the couple, then says, "We found a way to make it more entertaining though, haven't we?" to her husband, and they both started laughing. She then tells us that the road works are about 3 miles long with the group of workers spread out to maybe 7 or 8 groups, and they are normally going 10 to 15 miles per hour. So when they get near one of the groups, he beeps and she flashes them, and they all cheer. I couldn't believe it as they seem so straight-laced. That night when they left, my husband was saying how brave it is of them and that we should do it in the next morning. I asked if he's sure. This is a man who didn't like it when I posted a bikini pic on Facebook, by the way, and he said yes. And we even had sex that night for the first time in months, and he initiated for the first time in years. The next morning, we were both off to work, and as soon as he woke up, he mentioned me flashing. I asked if he's sure, and it wasn't just horny talk, and what if the men don't want to be flashed? And he said he's sure, and all men want to be flashed. We drive to the road and we see a group of workmen, and my husband gets all giddy and says, "Are you ready?" And I say yes, and he says, "Now!" And he beeps his horn and I lift my top up and they all cheer. We're going about 10 miles per hour when he suddenly slams his brakes and then tells me to get out. I was in shock. His face is red with anger and he's saying, "Get out, you effing slag." And I start crying and he's leaning over me, opening my car door, and then takes off my seatbelt and starts pushing me out. The cars behind me are beeping as he's stopping traffic, and he's yelling at the top of his voice. By now, the workers have heard the commotion, and 2 of them are rushing over to help. I turn to look at them, and I do, and he pushes me really hard, and the top half of my body falls out of the car, and I put my hands down. One of the workers is screaming at my husband and starts trying to open the door. The other worker is by me and quickly drags me out of the car. He told me afterwards that he saw my husband put the car in gear and thought he was going to drive off with me hanging out the car. My husband just left me. I was still only wearing a vest top and pajama shorts and my slippers as he had wanted to rush out and do this. My phone was in his car and I didn't have any house keys. One of the workers took his jacket off and wrapped me up in that. They took me to the cabin that was their canteen and put the heater on and made me a cup of tea. I was so embarrassed. This lot had seen my boobs and then seen me getting abused and then fell out of a car and then rescued me all in the space of 30 seconds. I kept apologizing to them and they said it was his idea, but they said it's okay and it happens a few times a day. And they are used to it, but I think they were just trying to make me feel better. They were laughing and joking with me and were also sweet and funny. They asked me if I wanted to ring anyone, but I don't know anyone's number apart from work and I didn't want them picking me up wearing next to nothing from a building site. I asked them if I could just ring a taxi, but they said I can't get in a taxi dressed how I am. The man I'm assuming was their team leader told one of them to drive me wherever I wanted to go. So I asked if I could go to my mom's house about 5 miles away. They gave me some spare work boots to walk across the mud to the van, and 2 of them drove me to my mom's house, and they were really sweet in making sure I was okay, and even walked me to the front door. When my mom answered, I was hysterical and crying, and they told her me and my husband had an argument, and he left me by the side of the road. My mom offered them a drink, and I tried to give them their coat and boots back, but they said it's okay. I told my mom we were driving to McDonald's and got into an argument. I didn't tell her about the pushing or anything. She drove me home and let me in with a spare key she has. I packed some things up and went back to my mom's. My husband had been home as my phone was on the table. In the 5 days since, he's been ringing me nonstop saying he's sorry, and he doesn't know what came over him. He said he heard about someone shout, "Nice pair," and it made him angry. My friends are saying leave. His are obviously telling me to give him another chance. I am 50-50, but if I do stay, I'm going to insist on couples counseling for us both, and sex therapy either for him or for the both of us. He says he doesn't want to involve other people in the relationship, and it feels silly to throw it all away over a few seconds of madness, and I should have just said no when he asked me to flash, as I know he's quite insecure. I was blinded by finally getting some sex and attention from him, and I thought I could get more. I took the workers their jacket and boots back, and also made them 2 cakes and bought them 1,000 bags of Yorkshire tea as a thank you.
Then in the comments section, one user said,
I don't think any relationship advice will do anything to help your situation, nor will couples counseling. This is definitely the sort of situation where couples counseling will only escalate problematic or abusive behavior. What you need, quite frankly, is a divorce lawyer.
Yeah, that's the thought that's becoming more prevalent in my mind. I took pictures of the bruises and scuffs on my arms and legs afterwards, and I keep looking at them and thinking, what would I say to anyone else who's shown them to me?
And then user 2 commented and said,
OP, you sound codependent on him and do everything he tells you to do to please him because you are terrified that he will leave you. Now you're in a situation where you did what he told you to do, but he ditched you anyway. He left you on the side of the road to the mercy of strangers that you just flashed with nothing on you. That was very dangerous, and it makes me question if he wanted something to happen to you. This relationship isn't safe for you anymore, and it probably hasn't been for some time. He's abusive. He doesn't want to do couples counseling because he knows what they would tell you. It isn't wise to do that with him anyway, because all that therapy is going to teach him are more weak points of you to take advantage of. Look for therapy for yourself. You know that he doesn't love you. That's why you accept all these behaviors of him. You can't make him love you by accepting his disrespect. You need to leave. It won't get better. It will get worse.
Update. I took people's advice on this subreddit and a couple of others and rang the police to report the attack. I spoke to the workers beforehand who said they would back me up. They arrested my husband and then released him on bail but told him he couldn't stay at my house, so he's going to his mom's. After the argument, he told all of our friends that I had cheated. I hadn't wanted to admit to people that I had flashed, but I felt like the tide was really turning against me, and a lot of people were believing his lies, so I wrote a long message with a description of exactly what happened, plus pictures of my injuries, including scrapes and bruises, plus screenshots of messages he sent admitting he asked me to flash, and admitting that he hit me, although he did blame me, saying if I just got out like he asked me, he wouldn't have had to do that. A few people apologized, most didn't, but I don't care anymore. I'm back home now, and he has to answer bail in a couple of months. The police don't sound confident that they can get a conviction, but maybe that's how they are supposed to sound. I've spoken a little bit to a lawyer, but I can't really afford anything at the minute in that way. It's been a sad few weeks, but an eye-opener, and I don't feel any guilt for getting the police involved or telling me what happened, just working and keeping myself busy at the moment.
Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on the workers who rescued her and said,
Luckily, the road worker was a big, strong guy. He picked me up up and got me out of the way like I was as light as a feather. That's the bit that plays in my mind the most. He drove off in a split second after I was out of the car, and the door was still open. I think in his mind, I was still half in the car when he drove off. Then OP elaborated on going to a safe place to stay away from her husband and said, "I don't think I need protection. My brother is staying with me now, and he could beat up 10 of my husband with one hand. Plus, I feel like there's more deserving people than me who need a charity's help." And then finally, OP elaborated on telling the police what happened and how they responded and said, "I did tell the police exactly what happened, as did the workmen. Believe it or not, the police didn't care about me showing flesh and cared more about me getting beaten up and nearly ran over."
Oh goodness, I can't believe it. He called his wife a slag, he did. Why would you call your wife a slag? That's messed up. And also pushing her out of the car because she did what you told her. And like she mentioned, he's always been insecure. We didn't really elaborate or expand deep onto that one, but I'm sure there's so many stories she could tell us about that one sentence alone. Also, once again, I'm just saying the age gap relationship is not worked out here on Reddit. I'm sorry. When I see it, something negative happens most of the time. I won't give a percentage, but it's a majority time. I'm just saying, when it comes to these stories, I see an age gap and I'm like, this probably isn't going well. If they're coming to Reddit, if I see the age gap, it doesn't end well typically. I'm just laying it out there. It's true. I'm sorry. But as for the story, I say this every now and then, there wasn't 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 updates. OP made one update and she said, "I called the police on his ass. I'm leaving him. I'm talking to a lawyer. The dude got arrested. I'm with my brother who can beat him up, by the way." So he can have his OnlyFans and his domestic abuse charge. And OP has her brother and all the workers backing her up and the police. Anyway, next story. Story number 15. My 24F boyfriend, 29M, is trying to be a streamer, and it's hard to explain to him that it won't happen. I know this is a bit lighter than what this subreddit is used to, but I don't know who else to tell this to that doesn't know him. Me and my boyfriend have been together for roughly 5 months. For Christmas, one of my gifts was an Xbox. A while back, I was reading something out loud to him from some gaming news site, and I mentioned that Ninja makes something like $500K a month on Twitch. Since learning this, he has since wanted to become a streamer. Now, every time he plays a game, he streams it. And I stated in my title that he's trying to become a streamer, but he really isn't trying at all. He's just streaming what's on his screen from his Xbox with no face cam or even a microphone. He said to me that he's really shocked he doesn't have many viewers. I tried gently explaining to him that streaming in YouTube isn't about your personality to no avail. He's also really camera shy and doesn't even have many pictures of him over the years to the point where his mother gave up on trying to get him into family photos. So I don't understand how being a streamer would even work for him or how he thinks it's a good idea. He also sits very quietly, muttering occasional swear words as he plays video games. The popular streamers he's trying to emulate have natural humor and commentary, and he just doesn't have it, if you know what I mean. He even mentioned that I should start streaming because I'm pretty okay at some games. I laughed it off and said I have no interest. In a past relationship, I've been called negative, so I don't want to just crap all over his parade. And for some background, he is in school to be an architect and has a good union job and gets paid pretty well. So it just can't solely be a money thing. This week, I was doing errands, and he said he was going to pick up his laundry and the groceries for me to cook dinner before I get there. When I did get there, he was sitting in his room in boxers, streaming for no viewers, and the laundry and groceries still hadn't been picked up, even though it had been 6 hours or so. This really pissed me off, but I didn't say anything. He doesn't usually play video games for that long, but now it's all he does in his spare time. We have a trip to Japan coming up in June, and he is now talking about buying equipment for his stream. Expensive equipment. My money for the trip has been put away for a month, and he still hasn't started saving for it. I am afraid that he will spend money on equipment and our trip will go to ruin. The other night, he said to me happily that he has one dedicated viewer that watches every time he's on. What he doesn't know is that Twitch counts you as a viewer when you start the stream, so the follower he's talking about is himself. I just really don't have the heart to tell him because I know how embarrassing that would be. It's become a point of annoyance every time I hear the word streamer. Any advice here, or should I just let this Twitch stream fizzle out without my input? Then in the comments section, one user said, "Hey there, OP, just wanted to chime in as a man who watched his 30-year-old cousin fall down the rabbit hole of video games and mental illness. I'll preface that there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to decompress after a long day at work, to just sit back and unwind. For some people, it's a godsend. Hell, I'll play them with my kiddo sometimes. But when people begin to abuse it, the video games that is, or really anything, that's when the problems start developing. See, for my cousin, he had just gotten out of a relationship, and I had convinced my cousin that he should invest his money into a gaming PC, not thinking it would literally change his life. First, it started out with him playing these innocent MMOs. Star Wars, it was
cool. We bonded for a while, and that was that. But then he started obsessing over this new universe. I would call him and he would be on this game. I'd text him and he'd be on this damn game. After a while, I just stopped speaking to him because literally the only thing he would talk about is that effing video game. He would play literally from the time he got up to the time he went to bed. 16 hours a day. 16 hours he would play Star Wars. A few years had passed by and I went to visit him and I was utterly disgusted with what I saw. Effing dog crap on the floor just left there. He was smoking in the house, 2 liters of Mountain Dew overflowing his garbage can. I saw him step over the dog crap while heating up leftover Hot Pockets and I just couldn't believe it. He had developed agoraphobia during this time and absolutely refused to leave the house. It got worse to the point where he wouldn't even go outside to socialize with his friends or go to the store because he'd lose his mind if he was outside for any significant length of time. It got so bad he didn't even attend the funeral of his own grandmother or grandfather who lived 10 minutes away from him. It was and still is effing pathetic. He's a complete loser in my eyes. No job, no kids, doesn't have a social circle outside his virtual avatar or whatever game he's obsessed with, doesn't acknowledge birthdays of family or even send a text message out. His only form of income comes from the enablement of his father, but that's not relevant. Video games completely effed my cousin's mind, and I would compare it to drugs, honestly. It can get that bad. Once someone has reached too far down, it's useless to try to snap them back to reality.
Then user 2 commented and said,
I'm sorry, OP, but your explanation about the one viewer that your boyfriend has really made me laugh. I think you should just let his dream die on its own, unless it gets really out of hand, which I don't think it has yet. He will likely associate you with his failure if you intervene, so save yourself the grief.
And then finally user 3 commented and said,
My soon-to-be ex-husband is in his late 20s and wants to be an astronaut. He's starting to realize it's not likely considering he has no college whatsoever and is kinda old, so I feel you.
Update. Some of you may not have been around to read the comments after I posted this, but some more details on the situation that I didn't initially say were posted by me when a Redditor, who has since deleted her comments for the sake of privacy, related to me and explained how her ex was the same way and seemed to have a video game addiction. Her experience eerily mirrored mine. You can read my responses here. Yesterday after work, I had to rush home to deal with some family stuff, so I did not get to sit down and talk to him besides a 5-minute phone call and passing him at work. Today, however, my path was clear, and I was determined to speak to him about this. When I woke up and showered, I checked the Xbox app and saw that he was last online 30 minutes ago at 7 a.m., which means again that he did not sleep at all. I did not contact him. His day off was today, and he called me at 3 p.m. to say that he just woke up. I could hear Overwatch in the background, and he asked me how my day was going. And immediately, before I got to respond, he very angrily said, "Why the F won't this guy get off Hanzo? He effing sucks." And I had a client approaching me and swiftly hung up. I called him back after work when I was walking home, and I decided to start with small talk before I got to the subject I was leading to. I didn't even have a chance to start off with the small talk before he asked me why I was slightly out of breath. I said it's because I'm walking through snow up a hill. And then he said to me, "It's snowing?" It snowed heavily for quite a few hours. His place is built that you can't enter the hallway to the kitchen and front door without seeing it outside. He didn't even look outside of his window at all today, and has spent all day in his bedroom playing video games. This snapped me into asking him if he is planning to do anything else with his life besides play video games. And he said, "Of course, just not right now." And he had not showered or eaten at all today. I asked and he admitted it. I asked him if he thought that was healthy, and he said with an edge, "What, playing video games? Of course. Am I effing smoking meth or something?" And I clarified on this and just decided to say it. I said, I think he has a problem. The skipping work, not sleeping or eating, and overall the pure amount of hours he dedicates to playing them. He then did what most addicts do, got angry, and then spun it back on me. He said that I bought him the Xbox in the first place. "What the F do you expect me to do with it?" he said. And that I've been playing video games long before we were a thing. My Xbox is mostly used as a Netflix machine, by the way, and to play Overwatch or the Dark Souls trilogy on weekends. Continuing, I said I do not obsess with them or skip meals to play games, and that I would have never bought it for him if I knew this is what it would lead to. He got angry and asked if I just called to harass him. I said I called to speak to him and let him know my thoughts over the past few months. He said I was crazy and that everyone plays video games. And to whoever said that the streaming was just a decoy and an excuse for him to play video games all day, you were absolutely right. He feels justified in doing exactly that as long as he tells me that there's a goal to it all. I told him that my mind isn't changed and that I think he has a problem and should speak to someone. He said nothing to this. I then said that I don't feel we have anything more to really speak about, and that I can't spend my time worrying about him. I feel like I'm going to get hate for this, but I won't budge on it. He is not my child, and I can't force a grown man to eat or go outside. I have done my research and slept on it. Many people who DM'd me and commented to tell me their stories of dealing with a loved one with video game addiction, or that they were once in his shoes. This is not a battle I want to be in. He is not the person I met last year. He responded to this with a very mellow voice that he knows he's been inattentive and would like a chance to make it up to me. He said he wanted to go on a date tomorrow. I declined, and he started rambling about how perfect I am for him. I thought the same thing once. He kept going on and said I'm being ridiculous and started telling me the things he could be doing instead of playing video games, such as, I'm not a drinker, I don't cheat, etc. I'm sad because before we dated, he was a really good friend. I said that I am almost home and that I have to go. He stayed quiet for a while and said okay. The fact that the video game noises didn't stop during the duration of the entire phone call did not go unnoticed by me. He only lowered the volume, but not enough. I didn't bring it up because I don't think he would get off of the game even if I asked him to. We hung up, and that was that. Luckily, I only see him in passing at work, and I will now make sure not to see him at all. It's a huge building, and it isn't hard. I would also like to note that I got some very pleasant messages calling me an absolute B-word for not supporting him in playing video games. That I'm gonna regret everything when he's a famous streamer. Okay. Down to saying that I only care about him skipping work and potentially being fired because I'm in it for his money? I am prepared for more of those messages now for abandoning him. But anyway, I am still going to Japan.
Oh boy, what a crazy, ridiculous mess, most of which coming from the boyfriend side, or the ex-boyfriend. She didn't really say outright that they broke up during that phone call, but I guess they're done now as she has abandoned him, and she is still going to Japan. And also, about the ex-boyfriend, I have no faith that he would be good Hanzo main on Overwatch, okay? Hanzo takes no skill. You just do your arrow and go do, 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 and then you kill people, and it sucks, okay? And if you're a Hanzo main, stop looking at Tracer players, okay? I don't like that. But as for the story, good. She left him. He's stupid. He did no research on Twitch streaming. I'm somebody who's done streaming. I'm somebody who does YouTube. I still want to do YouTube. And the fact that he didn't realize the one viewer was him just tells me everything I need. The fact that he just started off and said, man, why am I not getting more viewers? Look at your stream. Look at Ninja. Look at anyone with 5 viewers and look at you. It's because you have no camera. It's because you have no microphone. You are doing the bare minimum, so you're going to get the bare minimum viewership. I'm just saying. But I do hope he realizes the kind of rabbit hole he's going down, and you know, for some people the end of the relationship makes you realize like, oh man, did I change? Like, you know, the ending of a relationship usually leads to reflection, so hopefully in that reflection he can see, you know, the fat lard playing Overwatch for 12 hours a day. But anyway guys, we are at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. It's been a long one but a fun one, but have a good day and bye bye.